How many primordial stones did San Shouang borrow from you? Jian Wushuang calmly asked. Not much, only 30 million primordial stones, and the little love between him and me worth more or less 20 million primordial stones, so you only need to fork out 50 million primordial stones. I shall call it a truce with that, and you may continue being the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord and do whatever you want, suggested Yuan Lei. 50 million primordial stones aren't too many, said Jian Wushuang indifferently. A weird smile appeared on Yuan Lei's face. He did have a little friendship with San Shouang, but their relationship had faded long ago. San Shouang did borrow some primordial stones from Yuan Lei to buy the 4th volume of the Divine Destruction Beast Manual, but it was only 6 million primordial stones, yet he had asked for 50 million, which was an exorbitant amount. He only did so because he was aware of Jian Wushuang's wealth. 50 million primordial stones was nothing to Jian Wushuang. Yuan Lei had decided that he would never trouble Jian Wushuang again if Jian Wushuang was willing to give him 50 million primordial stones. He was the Star-Picking Pavilion's Golden Chief, and he had to comply with the Star-Picking Pavilion's policies after all. He could still avoid doing anything that goes against their policies. I have 50 million primordial stones. But what are you going to do if I won't give it to you? Jian Wushuang casually asked. No? Jian, I advise you to think carefully about it. You ought to know your life is worth more than the 50 million primordial stone, even if it's a lot. Yuan Lei smiled faintly as a huge wave of divine power was sent across, aiming at Jian Wushuang at the same time. So this is a heaven ultimate god's divine power? Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly constricted. He knew the weakest of Star-Picking Pavilion's chiefs were at least a peak Earth ultimate god, with most of their golden chief at the heaven ultimate god realm. He knew Yuan Lei was a genuine heaven ultimate god. However, Jian Wushuang did not have the slightest fear after knowing his opponent was a heaven ultimate god. His eyes were showing a strong intent to fight. On the contrary. After spending 10 years cultivating in seclusion, I've achieved merit in Sword World and made a breakthrough to peak ultimate god realm. My combat prowess is at the peak Earth ultimate god level, and I'm now able to fight against a weak heaven ultimate god if I opt to put my full abilities to use. Although I've made no major breakthroughs in understanding sword principle and laws nor improvements in my cultivation realm, my strength has improved by several folds through regaining the stately painting. It's still unsure who's stronger if I try my best to fight against Yuan Lei. Jian Wushuang was looking forward to finding that out as he stared at Yuan Lei closely and licked his lips. Yuan Lei, right? I have 50 million primordial stones in my interspatial ring and also many other treasures. All of these will belong to you if you manage to kill me. This may be a huge sum of money, but can you take it from me? Jian Wushuang scoffed. Do you have a death wish? Yuan Lei's eyes went wide. If that's the case, I shall fulfill your wish. Yuan Lei instantly fired out after he said so. Boom! A majestic aura wave led by a huge gush of divine power came like a torrent. All the divine power instantly formed a green beast in front of Yuan Lei that was full of vitality. The green beast let out a roar before charging at Jian Wushuang. It continued to evolve and increased its size tenfold until it reached a few hundred feet high before it appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The several hundred feet high green beast was like a huge mountain as it dashed toward Jian Wushuang with its mouth wide open as though it could swallow the entire world. The divine power pressed on Jian Wushuang without giving him any chance to escape. This is really powerful. You're indeed a heaven ultimate god. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and looked up to admire the green beast coming down at him. 5 years ago, he had seen the scary battle between heaven ultimate gods and grand ultimate gods during the fight of the Huangji Golden Pill. At that time, he was far away from the battlefield and had not personally participated in the battlefield. Hence, he did not manage to grasp a feel of heaven ultimate god's power. Even though he did break into the battlefield later, all he did was threaten the people on the battlefield with his life rating pressure without any chance to fight against the heaven ultimate gods. At this time, he was all alone and could finally feel the strength of a heaven ultimate god. The green beast was just a simple trick performed by Yuan Lei at will, but its power was sufficiently strong to put any ordinary Earth ultimate god in despair. An ordinary Earth ultimate god, even some of the weaker peak ultimate gods, might not even have a survival chance under that green beast's mouth. However, Jian Wushuang was not included among those Earth ultimate gods. He kept a cold and desolate look on his face as the 7-star secret technique within his body began brewing, whereas the aura on his body had also instantly climbed from a high-level Earth ultimate god to the peak Earth ultimate god level. The Blood Mountain sword behind him was instantly unsheathed and moved along with his steps. A monstrous killing intent that had been infinitely magnified rose all of a sudden. Kill! 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 Jian Wushuang's entire mind and body were replaced by the murderous intent. His eyes slowly closed before reopened again. A terrifying killing intent shot out the moment his eyes opened. Space-time sword technique, 5th style. Killing heart. Hum. A scarlet swordlight with murderous intent came down. The scarlet swordlight carried a terrifying power which instantly cut the mountain-like green beast that was hundreds of feet tall into half. Yet the swordlight remained unabated and continued cutting through the void above right into the sky. Infinite divine power breath was disseminated. Oh! Yuan Lei gave Jian Wushuang a surprised look. No wonder he's so arrogant. He's quite powerful. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted coldly as he shot out a few streams of light using his mind. Those light streams were coming from black swords that exuded a cold breath with a large amount of transmigration strength. Those were the Infernal Crimson Divine Sword. 9 Infernal Crimson Divine Swords, 9 Heavenly Treasure Divine Weapons, arranged in a line before Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang then pointed with a finger. Buzz! 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 The 9 Infernal Crimson Divine Swords began to evolve into 9 reincarnation passages in the blink of an eye. Those 9 reincarnation passages were huge, mysterious, and unpredictable. Go! The 9 reincarnation passages went crashing at Yuan Lei like 9 gigantic asteroids under the guidance of Jian Wushuang. Each of those 9 asteroids contained immense and powerful energy. Yuan Lei shivered, and a surging pure divine power that could only be possessed by a heaven ultimate god concentrating in the void before him broke out within the blink of an eye. A barefooted green titan that was more than 3 kilometers tall formed with thick muscular arms and thighs, and a single horn on its forehead. Its body surface was shrouded with terrifying divine power. The green titan swung its muscular arm as soon as it appeared and threw out a slap. Boom! The 9 asteroids were immediately deflected away. Jian Wushuang focused his eyes. 9 swords combine. Heaven's edge. Ring. The 9 asteroids were immediately deflected backward and overlapped each other before suddenly forming a huge reincarnation passage. A black divine sword shrouded with infinite samsara strength instantly shot out violently from the end of the reincarnation passage after that. The black divine sword was a perfect sword formation formed through the combination of 9 infernal crimson divine swords. The first stage of transmigration sword formation, Heaven's Edge. The first stage sword formation's power completely broke out following the full activation of Jian Wushuang's transmigration law. Birum. The black divine sword pierced through the void with terrifying power and charging boldly at the green titan like an awl. The green titan growled before tightly clenched its fist and punched violently with infinite force. Impact noises burst out violently as the two made contact and a huge hole appeared on the green titan's fist. The black divine sword continued its crazed attack and pierced through its palm before going through its chest. The momentum was finally exhausted and dispersed with the reappear of 9 identical black divine swords flying sideways in the void. The green titan should have fallen apart at that moment when being penetrated. However, it was still shrouded with surging energy. Yuan Lei was still standing there behind it with a slight smile. That's truly a sword formation created by Sword Lord Tong Xian. Such incredible power. You truly are gifted to be able to unleash the sword formation to such a level despite only learning it for a few years. Unfortunately, the distance between Earth Ultimate God and Heaven Ultimate God isn't something that could be filled in with a sword formation. The penetrated hole on the green titan not only recovered, but its energy suddenly surged even higher before vigorously projecting outwards after he said that. A green-colored lance then appeared in its right hand. Vitality Law. Jian Wushuang squinted while staring at the green titan. He could tell that Yuan Lei had studied Vitality Law as it possesses the characteristics of strong vitality, incredible resilience, and extremely firm defensive abilities. However, experts who studied vitality law did not possess very powerful offensive abilities. Although being offensive was not Yuan Lei's forte, he was a true heaven ultimate god after all. Jian Wushuang did not dare to be careless. An immense gold-colored divine power was forcefully gathered, accompanied with ringing noises at that instance, and formed a more than 9 kilometers tall golden god shadow behind him. The divine golden god shadow stood tall while overlooking everything around it. The green titan was only 3 kilometers tall, which was a dwarf compared to the golden god shadow in terms of size. Furthermore, Jian Wushuang's overall ability surged even higher with the help of the divine god of punishment. You do have some tricks. Shame that they're useless. Yuan Lei smiled faintly while suddenly lashing out his hand. A wholesome principal world suppressed Jian Wushuang in an instant. The principal world was filled with powerful energy, with the area that had opened up having probably surpassed 5,000 kilometers. Most importantly, the principal world had reached profound realm since he was a heaven ultimate god. A wave of vital energy was sweeping out at its surroundings as his principal world pressed outward. Life started bursting out in the wasteland below within a split second as large amounts of trees, flora and fauna burst out from the ground. A refreshing breeze blew by as the environment between heaven and earth turned into a completely lively new realm. The green titan's size immensely augmented as its power grew to a whole new level, and it began to charge at Jian Wushuang with the lance in its hand. However, Jian Wushuang sneered at the scene before him. Right then, boom! A heaven-shaking sword essence suddenly surged as the 50,000 kilometers sword world he developed was unleashed. Although it was only a merit sword world, it ruthlessly swept out as soon as it appeared, and the profound realm principal world retreated swiftly like an ebbing tide under the sword world's influence. What? Yuan Lei was shocked. A merit sword world could actually suppress my profound principal world? How's that possible? Yuan Lei was completely stunned but did not know that the heaven ultimate god, Zhonghun, that Jian Wushuang had killed was equally as stunned as he was. Furthermore, that surprise was only the beginning as Jian Wushuang waved his arm right after that, and a beam of light blended into the surrounding void. Heaven and earth were shivering in that instance. A most beautiful scroll-painting world appeared out of nowhere from the heaven above. The scroll-painting world was incredibly real with mountains, rivers, and even contained 9 gigantic continents. What's that? Yuan Lei frowned. The Thousand Treasures Grand World? Transmigration World. Jian Wushuang's cold voice resonated. Vroom, the surroundings began to change. The original wasteland initially became full of life with birds chirping and flowers blooming from Yuan Lei's unleashed vitality law power. However, that environment had turned into infinite darkness in the blink of an eye. Gigantic reincarnation passages began to appear one by one out of nowhere in the darkness. The reincarnation passages were spread out to different corners of the world as infinite samsara strength began to unscrupulously spread out. The transmigration world was filled with infinite samsara strength as Jian Wushuang stood in the center, although he was the ruler of the transmigration world. Yuan Lei, welcome to my world. Jian Wushuang smiled as his laughter resonated in every corner of the transmigration world. Ring, 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 ring. The 9 separated infernal crimson divine sword appeared before Jian Wushuang once again, trembling and shrouded with samsara strength, way stronger than before. Transmigration world was mainly powered by transmigration law, which was filled with inexhaustible transmigration powers within. Samsara strength activation or usage of transmigration-related secret techniques in that world would have their strength greatly empowered. However, tactics from other laws would be weakened considerably in that world. The effect of Jian Wushuang's transmigration sword formation could be maximized there. On the other hand, Yuan Lei had his vitality law limited in every way. Yuan Lei, welcome to my world. Jian Wushuang's laughter pounded on Yuan Lei's eardrums, as he felt a touch of annoyance. World transformation. This kid could actually do that in an instant? How mind-blowing is that formation? Yuan Lei was feeling a little shocked but quickly firmed up his stare. No, he's a mere Earth ultimate god regardless of how skilled this kid is. Grand techniques such as world transformation are perhaps unachievable even by undying saints, let alone him. He must be relying on some treasure. Yes, it has to be a treasure. A treasure that enables world transformation. The treasure would be mine if I killed him. Killing intent rose in Yuan Lei's mind. He originally did not have such strong killing intent toward Jian Wushuang, as he only wanted Jian Wushuang to pay him 50 million primordial stones and he would immediately leave. However, forget about 50 million at that moment. He would definitely not allow Jian Wushuang to walk away alive, even if he agreed to pay him 100 million primordial stones. Boom! The 3 kilometers tall green titan's hostility shot up into the heavens. It already appeared before Jian Wushuang and attacked furiously with the lance in its hands. Humph! Jian Wushuang let out a cold humph as the 9 infernal crimson divine swords floating before him once again overlapped each other, and again formed the first stage of Transmigration sword formation. Heaven's Edge. The sword formation's energy level increased drastically and shot out with a boom under the empowerment from the surrounding infinite samsara strength. Bang! 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 One violent bang after another resonated as the Transmigration sword formation repeatedly clashed head-on with the Green Titan's lance. Although the Black Divine Sword was fended off every time and even flying off, the Green Titan did not have it easy either, with its advancement completely blocked. Moreover, the Black Divine Sword was incredibly agile. It could completely turn into an overpowering sword formation, but it could also disassemble into 9 different swords while still being able to unleash incomparable energy. For instance, the sword formation found a chance to disassemble at that moment. 6 infernal crimson divine swords continued clashing with the Green Titan, while the other 3 were attacking Yuan Lei like lightning under the empowerment of the surrounding samsara strength. The grim-looking Yuan Lei spontaneously executed a palm strike which deflected those 3 infernal crimson divine swords and caused them to fly backward. In a not-so-distant void, Jian Wushuang's eyes were burning with a heaven-shaking battle intent in the center of the Transmigration world at that moment. Heaven Ultimate God. I'd love to see if I have the abilities to slay a Heaven Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang moved with a bloodthirsty smile. The heaven and earth around transformed once again as he moved. Although the surrounding was still pitch black, the various reincarnation passages had already vanished out of sight. A large number of space-time cracks and immense space-time storms took over its place. The samsara strength that initially filled the area between heaven and earth had changed into surging space-time energy. The Thousand Treasures Grand World had shifted from Transmigration World into Space-Time World in the blink of an eye. That world was dominated by space-time. Heaven and earth have changed again? Yuan Lei's face was grim as Jian Wushuang concurrently appeared before him under his scrutiny. Ring! A total of 300 apparitions burst out at the same time and filled the space. They were faster and more agile under the effect of space-time energy. Even Yuan Lei could not tell which among the apparitions was Jian Wushuang's true self in such a short time. Whoosh! A cold sword light suddenly appeared and cunningly directed itself at Yuan Lei's heart from behind. That's really fast. Yuan Lei was shocked. In truth, Jian Wushuang could not perform at such incredible speed with his current understanding of space-time law. The speed was mainly due to him situated at the space-time world within the Thousand Treasures Grand World. His performance using space-time law was greatly amplified there. Boom! A low-impact noise resonated which shuddered Yuan Lei, who swiftly and subconsciously moved sideways. However, Jian Wushuang instantly dashed forward and completely unleashed his sword technique with a terrifying speed. Whoosh! 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 Shades of sword shadows lashed out from Jian Wushuang's hand. The sword shadows looked very spontaneous, hence its momentum was not considered strong. However, they were moving too fast. Too fast. They were just too fast. Jian Wushuang already possesses very fast speeds. The space-time world's assistance only immensely further increased his attack speed, which resulted in his sword lights moving incredibly fast despite being a spontaneous attack. The inexhaustible sword shadows were like an infinite ocean of swords that shrouded Yuan Lei within and forced him to defend himself the best he could. Despite being able to defend himself, he began to lose gradually from exhaustion. Kid, don't be too cocky now. Yuan Lei was incredibly mad and finally unleashed his heaven ultimate god abilities. Layers and layers of vital strength shrouded his body as his divine body also began to surge violently before growing to 5 meters tall with a great deal of energy increase. Energy began to gather in his right hand as he unleashed a palm strike. Boom boom! Heaven and earth shivered as a gigantic hand suddenly appeared. That gigantic hand emitted such energy levels that it would make any regular earth ultimate god lose all hopes to live. Even Jian Wushuang could not help but squint. It was not long from when he first managed to control the Thousand Treasures Grand World. Hence the space-time world he manifested from within was not too sturdy. The surrounding space-time world began to tremble upon the appearance of the gigantic hand. The gigantic hand's complete energy outburst shattered the space-time world and caused Jian Wushuang to retreat at that instant. Heaven ultimate gods are truly marvelous. However, Jian Wushuang sneered as the shattered space-time world began to rebuild itself at an incredible speed. The world began to shift once again. The shrouding darkness and space-time storms had faded away, revealing Jian Wushuang and Yuan Lei on a bare wasteland with many swords plunged to the ground. There were long swords, soft swords, heavy swords, and various other sword types. However, each of the swords undoubtedly had a terrifying aura. 10 of thousands of swords were plunged standing from the ground on that wide wasteland. It was a huge scale sword grave. Thousand Treasures Grand World. Sword Principal World. It was the Transmigration World first, then Space-Time World, and now it has shifted into the Sword Principal World? Yuan Lei did not like that a single bit. Beams of vigorous sword essence filled every corner of that world upon the Sword Principal World's formation. Jian Wushuang had been using his 50,000 kilometers perfect sword world to violently suppress and stun Yuan Lei, which caused his principal world to barely hang in there. Jian Wushuang's sword world energy suddenly surged ferociously once again upon the shift into sword principal world and crushed Yuan Lei's principal world in just a short moment. An incredibly powerful stunning strength took effect on Yuan Lei's body. Damn! Yuan Lei could not help but curse. Jian Wushuang attacked once again at that moment. The Blood Mountain sword lashed out silently. The heaven, earth, and space-time seemed as though they were overlapping. A mysterious sword shadow flashed by and disappeared under such overlappings. Space-time sword technique's sixth form, overlapping shadow. With the support of the surrounding sword principal world, Jian Wushuang's strike was especially terrifying. Yuan Lei was completely under the sword world's stunning effects as his face turned red from seeing the sword being pointed at him, and the 3 kilometers tall green titan immediately stood before him. Slash! The cold sharp sword blade sliced through the green titan and cut it into 2 halves before the sword shadow's impressive momentum continued to sweep toward Yuan Lei's divine body. Although Yuan Lei's divine body was equipped with protective techniques, his body was still shaken violently under the sword shadow attacks and threw up a big gulp of blood in the next moment. He was injured. A respectable heaven ultimate god expert like Yuan Lei was severely injured. Boy, you've totally pissed me off. I want to strip off your skin and take your bones apart to vent my hatred today. Yuan Lei's eyes turned red as he released a deep growl filled with infinite killing intent like a demon from hell. Jian Wushuang sneered upon seeing that. What coincidence! I'm also losing interest in playing games with you. Let's have a duel of fates. Jian Wushuang's body surface burst with golden light as soon as he finished his words. The golden light which came from his golden robe was the golden glass armor. A layer of golden armor appeared on the surface of his body in only a swift moment. One of the top 5 7 stars Black Sect's secret technique, 9 Sparkle Star armor, was unleashed. His current achievement of the 9 Sparkle Star armor from the Golden Armor chapter was enough to increase Jian Wushuang's overall ability threefold. Freeze! Jian Wushuang quietly commanded, and the 9 infernal crimson divine swords once again overlapped each other in the void next to him before forming the first stage of Transmigration sword formation. At the same time, a wave of golden divine power swept out from Jian Wushuang's body and formed a grand golden divine power ocean that swept across every direction in a frenzy, covering the surrounding heaven and earth. A gigantic golden prison appeared in the sword principle world in the blink of an eye. The golden prison's appearance perfectly overlapped with the sword principle world as its realm suppression effects began to sweep outward. The 9 kilometers tall golden god shadow behind Jian Wushuang also had its aura rise to its peak. Its eyes were shining with a thick essence of light while standing still. 7 stars secret technique, divine god of punishment, and 9 sparkle star armor. I've unleashed all 3 of 7 stars sect's strongest secret techniques. I've also used the stately paintings Thousand Treasures Grand World and Prison of Punishment. Presently, I've shown all my cards except for the life rating suppression. This is the highest state I can reach for the moment and also my most powerful form. I feel that the current me is even qualified to destroy a regular heaven ultimate god. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists as his burning battle intent surged. Humph! Yuan Lei humped coldly as his body that had already grown to 5 meters tall grew dramatically again and became 10 meters tall. At the same time, various secret markings which looked like tree branches surfaced on his body and gradually crawled all over his body, making him look ever so ferocious and terrifying. A gigantic tree grew upward behind him. That gigantic tree was also 3 kilometers tall, incomparably sturdy and full of life. A layer of green armor also appeared on the Green Titan's body in front of Yuan Lei along with its sudden violently surging energy. Charge! Yuan Lei shouted a command and the Green Titan charged at Jian Wushuang fiercely with a jump that covered a long distance in a short moment. Go! The black divine sword manifested from Transmigration sword formation vibrated upon being pointed by Jian Wushuang. Its energy suddenly increased threefold before charging outward in the blink of an eye under the 9 sparkle star armor's influence. Jian Wushuang's deadly eyes stared ahead at Yuan Lei, who was at a far distance. The 9 kilometers tall golden god shadow suddenly burst with glorious golden light behind him. The gigantic golden god shadow's arms swung outwards upon Jian Wushuang's mental manipulation. The 2 golden palms suddenly expanded infinitely to the extent of covering the sky and the sun, such that half of heaven and earth could be covered with only one hand. The entire surrounding void was then covered by both hands. Both palms began to fold together toward Yuan Lei. Punishment! Divine destruction! Jian Wushuang commanded vigorously. The terrifying divine power burst out of the golden god shadow's giant palms. Yuan Lei was completely imprisoned within the void as the 2 palms slowly folded together. Divine destruction, like prison of punishment, was one of the techniques built within the divine god of punishment secret technique. In his past life, Jian Wushuang had seen Emperor by using that move before. In his current life, he could finally use it after making a breakthrough to peak ultimate god along with a few years of studying. Even though they were the same moves, it was a few times more powerful than Emperor Bai's when Jian Wushuang performed it. Yuan Lei began to panic upon seeing both golden palms closing in on him from both sides. He could feel the extremely destructive energy contained in the 2 palms and dared not be careless. Boom, boom, boom. Infinite green divine power suddenly burst out from his body and caused the gigantic tree behind him to begin spreading out. The countless branches started to take shape and extend before finally clashing head-on with the 2 golden palms. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The divine power clashing noises resonated the heaven and earth. However, the head-on clash only lasted for a short moment before the 2 gigantic golden palms began folding together again. What? Yuan Lei was completely shocked and had not expected that he still could not fend off that particular attack after unleashing his most powerful ability. The 2 golden palms were still closing in and continued to suppress him, while the branches which burst out from his body were also gradually losing the fight. Boom! The pair of golden giant palms finally folded together completely. Yuan Lei was naturally bearing unprecedented pressure situated in that void in which the horrifying energy was violently crushing. The golden divine power gradually subsided after a while, and the void returned to its original calmness bit by bit. Yuan Lei was still standing in that void after matters died down, but his body was covered with blood. Cracks began to appear on the 3 kilometers tall tree behind him along with his greatly decreased aura. However, an expert who practiced vitality law had the incredible rejuvenating ability. His capability would return in an extremely short time so long the giant tree behind him still stands. Still kicking, Jian Wushuang's frosty eyes stared at Yuan Lei. Yuan Lei raised his head and looked at him with a strange smile on his lips. Jian Yi, I truly have underestimated you. You're merely an Earth ultimate god who not only possesses great battle strength but also endless techniques. I've lost this battle, but don't you get cocky now. If my guess is right, the reason you could perform so many techniques is because of the treasures on you, especially the one that could perform world transformation. Hee hee. A treasure of such caliber isn't something an Earth ultimate god like you could possess. You'd probably have a lot of visitors at your doorstep very soon if I spread the word about you possessing such treasures. Do you really think you have the chance to do that? Jian Wushuang's voice was as cold as his gaze. Yuan Lei's expression changed and quickly raised his head in the next moment as he noticed something. His eyes were opened wide upon raising his head. Extremely powerful energy that previously existed in the world inside the floating scroll painting began to descend from above him. A gigantic palm print began to descend from within the painting's world. That palm print was the Divine Emperor Seal, a technique Jian Wushuang acquired after fusing the first 3 forms of the 9 provinces seal. It was also Jian Wushuang's most powerful offensive move. That's... Yuan Lei's eyes were opened so round and wide in disbelief. He was situated right under the gigantic palm print and could clearly feel that the palm print's energy could even destroy heaven and earth. That energy was a lot stronger than the pair of gigantic golden folding palms unleashed by Jian Wushuang, which had severely injured him. It was so much stronger. He had enough confidence to protect himself from the pair of golden folding palms. However, the descending giant palm print simply made him feel a touch of helplessness. You actually have a technique that's stronger than the one before? Yuan Lei gave a deadly stare at Jian Wushuang as though looking at a monster. He truly was a monster. An Earth ultimate god who could perform those techniques time and again was enough to shock him to the core. He thought Jian Wushuang's previous move that severely injured him was already his strongest move. Jian Wushuang unexpectedly had something even more to offer. It was simply unbelievable. The gradually descending giant palm print caused Yuan Lei to even feel that all hope was lost. He tried his best to project his divine power. So was the giant tree behind him, working hard to block the gigantic palm print. However, the end was destruction. The gigantic palm print destroyed everything in its way and covered Yuan Lei's divine body in the blink of an eye. No! Yuan Lei gave out one final hysterical cry before being completely covered by the palm print. Boom, boom, boom. Infinite divine power rolled violently and shook heaven and earth. After a long while, the surroundings finally calmed and quieted down along with the gradually dispersing gigantic palm print and overwhelming divine power. Jian Wushuang slowly waved his hand as the golden prison and golden god shadow behind him disappeared. The sword principle world around him changed as well and reverted the area back to its original wasteland. On the other hand, the scroll painting world had just rewrapped itself back and turned into a beam of light before returning to Jian Wushuang's body. Jian Wushuang then kept the 9 infernal crimson divine swords inside his interspatial ring. Everything finally died down. Jian Wushuang exhaled quietly and walked forward to the void that was crushed by the Divine Emperor Seal. There was nothing left in the void, not even a corpse. Yuan Lei's body was completely grounded into microparticles by the Divine Emperor Seal. The only items left were Yuan Lei's interspatial ring and treasure that he had with him, which Jian Wushuang tried his best to keep intact. A true heaven ultimate god. One that deeply understands vitality law and fully equipped with extremely potent rejuvenating skill, has been killed by me. A strange light shone through Jian Wushuang's eyes as he felt a touch of excitement. Heaven ultimate gods was someone way above Earth ultimate gods. A regular Earth ultimate god, even a peak Earth ultimate god, almost had no capabilities to fight back against a heaven ultimate god. Even though his cultivation level was only at peak ultimate god, which was not even an Earth ultimate god yet, he managed to slay a heaven ultimate god in the end. Furthermore, it was a respectable duel with a head-on bombardment. It was truly a bombardment. He was purely relying on many hidden maneuvers, the stately painting, and a few secret techniques, he had to suppress Yuan Lei before finally using Divine God of Punishment's Divine Destruction and the 9 Provinces Seal's Divine Emperor Seal to bombard him till death. It would be enough to scare many to death if word of the battle had gotten out. The matter remains that he had truly achieved it. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath as the excitement gradually calmed down and his face turned serious again. Although I've killed Yuan Lei head-on, the reason I could kill him is because of my treasures, secret maneuvers, and hidden techniques. My true capabilities are still a far cry from Yuan Lei's without them. Jian Wushuang told himself while reflecting and summarizing the battle. Although Yuan Lei was a heaven ultimate god, he's average at best and isn't considered among the stronger ones if I'm not mistaken. He only had rather strong physical defenses, though his techniques were very normal, especially when it comes to offensive maneuvers. If I didn't run into him but a heaven ultimate god who's very good at offensive, I'm afraid I won't be in such an advantageous position. At the end of the day, it's really because of my very low cultivation level. My understanding of various laws and sword principles aren't too far from most heaven ultimate gods, but my too low level caused my base divine power being too far behind. I rely purely on secret techniques to fill in the lack of divine power. Jian Wushuang could not do anything about his cultivation level. His cultivation time was really too short and spanning only a few decades after all. It was already an incredible phenomenon for many to be able to reach the level of peak ultimate god in such a short time. I need enough divine elixir pill to increase my cultivation level. Yuan Lei was a golden chief from the star-picking pavilion and should have quite valuable items in his interspatial ring. I wonder if there are divine elixir pills among them. Jian Wushuang immediately investigated the interspatial ring that Yuan Lei left behind with a glimmer of hope. Yuan Lei himself was an authentic heaven ultimate god and also a golden chief in star-picking pavilion. His assets indeed did not disappoint Jian Wushuang and were faithful to his identity. Merely looking at primordial stones were already 30 million pieces of them. In addition, according to Jian Wushuang's estimation, the various types of cultivation resources had even exceeded the value of those primordial stones. Other than that, Yuan Lei possessed quite a fair bit of treasures as well. There were a dozen heavenly treasures that could help offensive skills cultivation. He even had 2 sets of defensive armor despite being only at the ordinary level heavenly treasures. Unfortunately, there were no unique items like mystical weapons. Not only did Yuan Lei have the divine elixir pill that Jian Wushuang was looking for in his interspatial ring, but there were 3 of them. Adding on the one that I have and those 3 divine elixir pills, I have 4 pills in total. It'll help me make quite a bit of progress if I cultivated using all of them, but I'll still be quite a distance away from becoming an Earth Ultimate God, thought Jian Wushuang. He had previously estimated that he would need around 20 divine elixir pills for him to make a breakthrough to primary level Earth Ultimate God from peak Ultimate God. For pills were only 1/5 of that number. What's this? Jian Wushuang was curious when he found a green-colored jade bottle. The reason that bottle caught his attention was because of the vital energy being emitted from it. He was even more surprised upon realizing he had never seen the material type used to make that jade bottle. There's such strong vital energy coming out from that jade bottle's content? Jian Wushuang immediately removed the cork and extended his soul power into it and immediately saw the drop of liquid within. The green liquid looked like dews on a flower or grass that could be found during the early mornings, but with a darker color shade. Moreover, Jian Wushuang felt a shock on his body and mind as soon as he saw the green liquid, which caused a grand sight to rise around him. That one drop of liquid contained such immense vital energy that even shocked him greatly. Although I don't know what this is, the content in this unique bottle carries such strong vital energy only means that it's no ordinary item. Should I find a chance in the future and get someone to appraise it? Said Jian Wushuang. No one else in Danyang Holy Domain was more qualified to appraise treasures than Star-Picking Pavilion, not even in the surrounding 9 realms of Golden Crow. Every chief in Star-Picking Pavilion had an extremely vast knowledge about treasures, as they even specially trained several appraisers. Many extremely rare treasures, including those that had completely disappeared from the 9 realms of Golden Crow, could be identified by the Star-Picking Pavilion. For example, the green liquid could easily be taken to Star Picking Pavilion for an appraisal so long he was willing to spend some money. He would be able to know about the history and function of that green liquid. However, Jian Wushuang had just killed a golden chief from Star Picking Pavilion and acquired the green liquid from him. He did not dare go to Star Picking Pavilion under such circumstances. I'll head home first. I came out just for the auction but ended up studying the stately painting and transmigration sword formation after the auction. It's been 5 years since I've left. I wonder how Northern Darkstar territory is doing under Xianxia and Commander Songheng's management. Jian Wushuang smiled and very soon left the place for Northern Darkstar territory. A few men appeared on that very piece of land which had already turned into ruins only a day after Jian Wushuang left. The purple-robed man leading the group said with a cold voice, "Someone sensed a humongous fluctuation of divine power in this area. It seems like a big fight really took place here with both sides seems to have incredible capabilities based on the marks left on the battlefield. Most probably an epic battle at the Heaven Ultimate God scale. On top of that, even though it's been a moment, the battlefield is still filled with a thick vital energy. It's probably left behind by Yuan Lei who studies the vitality law." The purple-robed man was the Star-Picking Pavilion supervisor. As for the 3 men following him, 2 of them were Golden Chief while the other one was the Black Chief who received Jian Wushuang. "Are you sure Yuan Lei was going after the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord and not someone else?" The purple supervisor looked at the Black Chief. "Positive." The Black Chief nodded solemnly. Master Yuan Lei had already spotted the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord early on in the auction, but for some reason did not take action. The Territorial Lord came once again at that time to purchase 9 Infernal Crimson Divine Swords before leaving. We completely lost contact with Master Yuan Lei soon after with him not even replying to our messages. The purple-robed supervisor squinted as he knew the reason why Yuan Lei did not take action. It was because Yuan Lei and the 2 Golden Chiefs were receiving orders from Senior Meng and he naturally could not walk away. Yuan Lei's probably dead since he fought against someone here and we no longer heard from him thereafter. The Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord is only a high-level Earth Ultimate God. Even though he obtained Sword Lord Tong Xian's Transmigration sword formation, it'll be impossible for him to kill Yuan Lei. "There has to be someone else who killed him," said the purple-robed supervisor. However, all the experts had left since the auction was over according to our intelligence. There are currently only a limited number of Heaven Ultimate Gods in Narcissus territory other than us and these Heaven Ultimate Gods having no reason nor the opportunity to kill Yuan Lei, said one of the Golden Chiefs. "Let's just stop here and don't investigate further regardless of who did it," said the purple supervisor immediately. "Don't investigate further?" The 2 Golden Chiefs were slightly surprised. A Star-Picking Pavilion Golden Chief dying was a big deal, and yet the supervisor had no intentions to investigate further? This Yuan Lei was looking for trouble anyway. He immediately followed the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord as soon as he stepped out of Star-Picking Pavilion. Although they may have a minor private grudge, he still defied our rules and we have nothing much to say now with him being killed. Furthermore, it'll defile our reputation if word about this matter goes around. So we'd better keep this matter low-key. We can covertly investigate Yuan Lei's death, but do keep it that way. Other than that, we can also keep an eye on the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord. Although he doesn't have the capabilities to kill Yuan Lei, he probably has something to do with his death after all, said the purple supervisor. Aye. The 2 Golden Chiefs behind immediately nodded. They left very soon. Northern Darkstar Territory. Jian Wushuang exited through a wormhole with a flash. "I've returned." He exhaled and began gliding towards his Territorial Lord residence. Jian Wushuang passed by the official army barracks along the way. He suddenly paused as he glided above the barracks. How come there are only so few of them? Jian Wushuang frowned while overlooking the barracks below. There were 10 battalions in the official army with each battalion consisting of 1,000 strong. There should have been a total of 10,000 men. However, as Jian Wushuang's soul power expanded, he could sense there were only 1,000 men in the barracks which constituted only 1 battalion. This was the official army barracks, which would normally still have a large number of soldiers holding their positions in case something happens even when they received a big mission. Furthermore, there should have been 3 or 4 battalions permanently in the barracks, but there was only a single battalion at that moment. Did something happen? Jian Wushuang wondered before increasing his speed toward the territorial lord residence. Jian Wushuang had already descended in a manner and noticed that the residence did not change much. Jian Wushuang called out, "Exiner, Master, you're back?" Xiao Tiexin saw Jian Wushuang and smiled in surprise. "I just returned and I realized there was only 1 battalion left when I passed by the official army barracks. What's going on? Did something happen?" Jian Wushuang asked. Xiao Tiexin nodded and said, "Something indeed happened. A blood gem mineral vein was discovered in the Starfire Wilderness within our territory a year ago. Commander Songhang immediately brought 2 battalions over when he received the news. But who knew they'd find that someone has already taken over the mineral vein upon their arrival?" "Taken over?" Jian Wushuang was shocked. The official army had the strength to take over everything in northern Darkstar territory. Who had the nerves to rob them of the mineral vein? "It's our territory's direct neighbor, Green Flame Star territory. Moreover, Starfire Wilderness is coincidentally located at the border between northern Darkstar territory and Green Flame Star territory. Their territorial lord received the news faster than us and sent their official army ahead of us the very moment news about the blood gem mineral vein began spreading. The mineral vein had already been taken over by the Green Flame Star territory's official army by the time Commander Songhang arrived with his men. Commander Songhang naturally was not ready to give up, so he argued with them and a fight consequently broke out. The 2 official armies were similar in battle strength, but the Green Flame territorial lord later took matters into his own hands. He's the strongest territorial lord among those other territories around us, a peak Earth ultimate god. Commander Songhang of course fell into an absolute disadvantage with him joining the battle. Commander Songhang later mobilized 9 battalions over out of necessity, and we can finally fight against the Green Flame territory as equals by relying on the numbers advantage. It seems that the blood gem mineral vein is currently being split 50-50 between northern Darkstar territory and Green Flame Star territory, with each mining their gems," said Xiao Tiexin. "Is that so?" Jian Wushuang looked grim. He had heard of blood gem being a very high-leveled instrument cultivation material. The blood gems were usually mined to cultivate heavenly treasures with only a very limited amount used for peak earthly treasures cultivation. In normal circumstances, only 10,000 pounds of blood gems was needed to cultivate a heavenly treasure. A complete blood gem mineral vein perhaps contained more than 10,000 pounds of blood gems. Its value was naturally quite astonishing. Jian Wushuang sneered. "The mineral vein is found within our territory. Yet the Green Flame territorial lord has the nerves to lead his official army to our land and steal it. How dare he look down upon the northern Darkstar territorial lord?" However, he knew that the Green Flame territorial lord was a peak Earth ultimate god and himself. Everyone knew about Jian Wushuang's battle strength being at most only in the high-level Earth ultimate god realm from killing San Shouwang before leaving northern Darkstar territory. It was only normal that the Green Flame Star territorial lord did not take him seriously. "Exiner, you stay here while I make a trip to Starfire Wilderness," said Jian Wushuang. "Master, be careful. The Green Flame Star territorial lord is a peak Earth ultimate god after all," reminded Xiao Tiexin. "Haha, I understand." Jian Wushuang smiled, but had to disagree deep inside. Why worry about a peak Earth ultimate god when he could even head-on kill a heaven ultimate god? Starfire Wilderness was just a regular wilderness located at the edge of northern Darkstar territory. However, it was at that exact location an incredibly valuable blood gem mineral vein was discovered in the huge mountains. One that made the Green Flame Star territorial lord cross boundaries to fight for. The mountains were humongous and the entire mineral vein was similarly also incredibly huge. The mineral vein began on both ends of the mountains which a camp had been respectively built. Several commanders from the official army were gathered together in one of the camps. Songhang sat there and exclaimed, "It's too huge. This blood gem mineral vein is truly too huge. The mineral vein that we managed to control is only 40% of the entire thing. According to early estimation, the blood gems extended underground that has been discovered is already more than £1 billion, and could even be a lot more. Blood gems are used for cultivating heavenly treasures. In the market, their value is also truly shocking. A pound of blood gems will cost 10 primordial stones, while £1 billion of the blood gem will exceed 10 billion primordial stones. Wow! The commanders around him were in disbelief. 1 million primordial stones were already considered an astronomical amount to those commanders who were only at peak ultimate god. What about 10 billion? They could not even begin to fathom the concept of it. Our strength is unfortunately limited, and 40% is the most we're able to keep in control. The remaining 60% falls under the Green Flame Star Territory Official Army's control. Furthermore, the Green Flame Star Territorial Lord has already known the value of the mineral vein and will definitely mobilize even more personnel over from the Green Flame Star Territory. I'm afraid that we can't even hold on to this 40% by then, said Song Hong coldly. Song Hong and the others were only able to occupy 40% of the blood gem mineral vein due to their larger military size advantage. Song Hong had mobilized 9 out of 10 Northern Dark Star Territory official army battalions and formed a military formation with considerably strong combat power. On the other hand, the Green Flame Star Territory was fighting outside of his territory and was only able to mobilize 5 battalions for the battle. However, the peak earthly ultimate god Green Flame Territorial Lord managed to help his team gain an absolute advantage with his exceptional strength. However, Song Hong and the others would be at a greater disadvantage if the Green Flame Territorial Lord was able to bring in 1 or 2 more army battalions from the Green Flame Star Territory, as that would make it rather impossible for them to continue occupying 40% of the mineral vein. It's simply too much for the Green Flame Territorial Lord to not only rely on his exceptional personal strength, but also bring his army into our territory to rob the mineral vein. It's unfortunate that our territorial lord isn't here. Otherwise, the Green Flame Territorial Lord won't dare to be so presumptuous. Not necessarily. Although our territorial lord is powerful, his combat prowess is only at the level of a high-level Earth Ultimate God. There's still quite a big gap between him and the Green Flame Territorial Lord. I'm afraid our territorial lord might have to bow down to the Green Flame Territorial Lord if the two of them meet and fight. The commanders were in a discussion and soon fell silent at the end of their discussion. Even if the military strength of the two territories were equivalent, their territorial lords indeed had different strengths. The world was a place where spoils belonged to the victors. Suddenly, "What are you guys discussing?" An indifferent voice sounded. Song Hong and the other commanders were startled. They immediately turned around to look at the source of the sound. They had not noticed a young man wearing golden robes and carrying a long sword had appeared. Territorial Lord. Song Hong was the first to react and immediately saluted respectfully. "A pleasure to meet the Territorial Lord." The other commanders saluted and felt a little apprehensive. The feeling was heightened as cold sweat beaded on them when they were reminded that they were speaking ill of their territorial lord just moments ago. They were worried if Jian Wushuang heard what they just said. Jian Wushuang did hear their discussion, but he could care less. "Commander Song Hong, tell me what's going on with the blood gem mineral vein at this moment?" Jian Wushuang sat down next to the table. Song Hong immediately explained the situation in great detail. 1 billion caddies? Even Jian Wushuang was shocked to hear the figures. This is just the amount of blood gems from the mineral vein we have discovered for the time being. There are still many that haven't been discovered. We currently only occupy 40% of the blood gems, whereas 60% is with the Green Flame Territorial Lord. If the number of blood gems in the entire mineral vein added up to billions, then its value will be a few tens of billion primordial stones, said Song Hong. It's a huge blood gem mineral vein? Jian Wushuang secretly smacked his tongue but kept a calm front. This mineral vein is way too valuable. Although it appears within our star territory, we can't take control of the entire mineral vein with our capabilities alone. I believe that people from Crimson Stone Fort will come forward sooner or later. Jian Wushuang knew very well that the lucrative mineral vein worth tens of billion primordial stones would be very appealing to top factions in Danyang Holy Domain. On the other hand, The Crimson Stone Fort was the official ruler of Danyang Holy Domain, with every stellar region and territorial lord being appointed and administered by them. The Crimson Stone Fort would send an expert to retrieve the high-valued mineral vein in northern Darkstar territory. Song Hung nodded in agreement. The largest winner from the mineral vein's appearance will be the Crimson Stone Fort, but they'll need miners to get the blood gems. Therefore, they'll naturally source manpower from northern Darkstar territory and entrust our official army to be responsible for monitoring the mining process until its completion. I suppose the territorial lord and official army will be able to gain a lot of benefits during that time, as Crimson Stone Fort will usually leave us some gravy when they take the meat. The current problem with the Green Flame Star territory is their actions of taking away even our last bit of gravy. Jian Wushuang cracked a faint smile, as Song Heng's metaphor was very appropriate. They could only pick up the leftovers after Crimson Stone Fort had collected their share of the benefit. How could they be able to accept the Green Flame Star territory rushing in and taking a cut of their portion? "Let's go and meet the Green Flame Territorial Lord," said Jian Wushuang with a smile. Song Hung did not act immediately from puzzlement. "Master, the Green Flame Territorial Lord is a peak Earth ultimate god. I hear he's very powerful." "I know." Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. "Take me to him." Song Hung stopped hesitating after noticing Jian Wushuang's confidence and immediately set off to lead the way. Jian Wushuang soon arrived at the void above the camp on the mine's other end. There were many soldiers from the Green Flame Star Territory's official army in the camp. "Master, the Green Flame Territorial Lord is in this camp," said Song Hung. Jian Wushuang nodded, as he had sensed an extremely tyrannical aura from the camp. "Green Flame Territorial Lord," Jian Wushuang called out, as his magnificent voice resounded vigorously throughout heaven and earth before naturally spreading toward the huge camp ahead. The camp immediately went into a commotion, and a few figures soon rose into the void, with a ragged silver-haired old man in a loose robe leading. The silver-haired old man was none other than the Green Flame Territorial Lord. The Green Flame Territorial Lord noticed Jian Wushuang as soon as he appeared in the void. Carrying a long sword while wearing golden robes, "You must be the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord, Jian Yi." The Green Flame Territorial Lord folded his hands and looked at Jian Wushuang with a somewhat condescending attitude. "I'm indeed Jian Yi. I've also heard about you, Green Flame Territorial Lord, and always wanted to visit you, but something unfortunate came up. My apologies that you had to make the trip instead." Jian Wushuang started with a friendly greeting before going into a serious tone. "However, I would have welcomed you if you're visiting alone, but I'm afraid it's too much for you to bring along 5 army battalions. Don't get me wrong. I heard there's a huge blood gem mineral vein in the Starfire Wilderness, and am worried it might fall into the wrong hands. Hence I came forth with my people to protect this area while you're away," said Green Flame Territorial Lord with a smile. "Protect it? I'll have to thank you then, Green Flame Territorial Lord," replied Jian Wushuang. "You don't have to. The Northern Darkstar Territory and our Green Flame Star Territory are connected geographically. We should be helping each other," teased the Green Flame Territorial Lord. "In this case, you won't have to protect the blood gem mineral vein anymore now that I've returned. You may now leave," said Jian Wushuang. "That won't do." The Green Flame Territorial Lord shook his head. "I've reported to Crimson Stone Fort about the blood gem mineral vein on your way back here. The Crimson Stone Fort has also dispatched some experts to retrieve this and had specifically ordered us to take good care of it before their arrival. Therefore, all of you will have to wait for Crimson Stone Fort's representatives." Jian Wushuang's expression turned cold after hearing that. "It seems the Green Flame Star Territory isn't going to leave. I can only use a little trick to make you leave if that's the case." "Did you ask me to leave? You're quite confident, but I don't know where your confidence is coming from." The Green Flame Territorial Lord sneered and could not care less about Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was not angry but merely flipped his palm slowly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 9 black infernal crimson divine swords appeared out of thin air in the void before Jian Wushuang. Those 9 infernal crimson divine swords each carried an infinite amount of transmigration strength. "Are you going to fight with that?" the Green Flame Territorial Lord said disdainfully. "Master." Song Heng and the other commanders frowned. However, Jian Wushuang merely smiled faintly before those 9 black infernal crimson divine swords instantly transformed into 9 huge meteorites and fiercely slammed toward the Green Flame Territorial Lord ahead. The Green Flame Territorial Lord stood calmly on the spot until the 9 huge meteorites appeared in front of him. His eyes narrowed slightly when the meteorites' power spread out. These 9 black swords seem quite powerful. The Green Flame Territorial Lord immediately took a shot and slammed the 9 swords with a sledgehammer that appeared in his hands. A peak Earth Ultimate God's divine power completely exploded with shocking power. Clang, 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 clang. After 9 continuous clanging sounds, the 9 huge meteorites transformed from the infernal crimson divine sword were sent flying out. The meteorite's terrifying power then collided with the Green Flame Territorial Lord and was forced to retreat a few steps backward. This kid seems to be much stronger than an ordinary high-level Earth Ultimate Gods. The Green Flame Territorial Lord held his hands together and prepared to make a move. Suddenly, congeal! Jian Wushuang only said a one-word command before the 9 infernal crimson divine swords instantly overlapped at an astonishing speed and caused a huge endless reincarnation passage to appear out of nowhere. A black divine sword encased in transmigration strength shot out from the end of that channel. The black divine sword was the result of a perfect sword formation made from the 9 overlapping infernal crimson divine swords. Boom! The black divine sword was like a huge awl with a terrifying power that penetrated the void and instantly appeared in front of the Green Flame Territorial Lord. This power? The Green Flame Territorial Lord was shocked upon feeling the power contained therein, the black divine sword that was much stronger than him executing a blow with his full strength. He was so horrified that he did not have much time to think and could only spontaneously swing the large hammer in his hand as the ripples spread out before firing a series of attacks. Boom! There was a loud noise as terrifying powers erupted from the black divine sword, and the large hammer broke away from the Green Flame Territorial Lord's hand for the first time. The black divine sword did not stop but continued to bombard the Green Flame Territorial Lord's divine body. Puff! The Green Flame Territorial Lord shook slightly before spewing out a big mouthful of blood. His complexion instantly paled along with his body's divine power. Breath dropped to an extremely low level. Buzz! The Transmigration sword formation formed from the 9 overlapping infernal crimson divine swords returned to Jian Wushuang. Green Flame Territorial Lord, I'll give you a chance. 10 breaths. You and your people are to immediately return to the Green Flame Star territory within just 10 breaths of time. Otherwise, you'll lie here forever. Jian Wushuang folded his hands behind his back with his extremely cold gaze as he stared at the Green Flame Territorial Lord. His mighty voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The Green Flame Territorial Lord was trembling as he met Jian Wushuang's gaze. Though his eyes were filled with resentment, they were filled with even more fear and reverent awe. Jian Wushuang had just displayed a terrifying strength level which was too strong. The Green Flame Territorial Lord was perplexed as he could see that Jian Wushuang was only a high-level Earth Ultimate God. Yet Jian Wushuang's sword formation defeated him in an instant. The Green Flame Territorial Lord would probably be dead had Jian Wushuang not held back his strength. He knew that Jian Wushuang's strength level was far beyond his own. He dared not defy Jian Wushuang's command for him and his people to leave within 10 breaths. Let's go! The Green Flame Territorial Lord immediately ordered the Green Flame Star Territory official army to retreat. The Green Flame Territorial Lord along with his official army quickly left within a few breaths toward the Green Flame Star Territory. The commanders of the Northern Darkstar Territory watched in awe and were completely stunned. They were just saying that Jian Wushuang would not be able to change anything due to his inferior high-level Earth Ultimate God battle strength against the peak Earth Ultimate God Green Flame Territorial Lord even if he returned. Jian Wushuang surprisingly made a boldly lightning-fast shot and defeated the Green Flame Territorial Lord in the blink of an eye. The strength gap was too wide apart. Jian Wushuang's strength completely exceeded their expectations. Our Territorial Lord has instantly defeated the peak Earth Ultimate God Green Flame Territorial Lord. He's so powerful. I remember he was far from being this powerful when he fought San Shouwang not long ago. It didn't take long for him to improve until this level, right? He's so powerful. The commanders looked at Jian Wushuang with deep awe and reverence. Song Heng. Jian Wushuang glanced at Song Heng. Bring some people to take over the mineral vein and try to figure out in the shortest time possible the quantity of blood gem we have in the mineral vein since the green flame star territory's people are gone. Yes. Song Heng obeyed the order and immediately left with some people to do the surveying before presenting the results quite soon to Jian Wushuang. It's more than 3 billion caddies. Perhaps somewhere between 3 to 4 billion? Jian Wushuang was surprised to hear the numbers from Song Heng. The market price for 1 caddy of blood gem was worth 10 primordial stones. 3 billion caddies of blood gem would cost a whopping 30 billion primordial stones. Unfortunately, we can't bag it all. Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly along with the commanders next to him, showing an equally helpless expression. It would be fortunate if they would own up 1% of the entire blood gem's wealth. How long will it take for those from Crimson Stone Fort to arrive? Jian Wushuang asked. They're already on the way. You can expect them to be here within 10 days, replied Song Heng. Within 10 days? We'll wait for them then, said Jian Wushuang. 8 days passed. Jian Wushuang stayed in the blood gems camp throughout those 8 days. Master, Song Heng came in to report. The people from Crimson Stone Fort have arrived. But, Jian Wushuang asked. That inspector is their leader, said Song Heng. Inspector? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. Oh, you mean the inspector who deliberately made things difficult for me before I became the territorial lord? The one who asked me for benefits, but I told him off. Right? Yes, it's him. I find out that he's called Jin Yihang and does have a certain background in Crimson Stone Fort. I heard he's a direct disciple of a certain faction in Crimson Stone Fort. 4 people came with him this time, and the 4 of them are peak Earth ultimate gods if my senses are correct, said Song Heng solemnly. We do have a bit of trouble here. I've offended him before, and he might make things hard for me since he's here as an inspector. Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly but did not care too much. Let's go and meet the inspector first. Jian Wushuang went with Song Heng to the void outside their camp. The menace-looking purple-robed man, Jin Yihang, stood up in the void while peeping down at the blood gem mineral vein below. Tisk, TSK. This is way too big. How much exactly is it worth? I'm afraid it's worth a few 10 billion primordial stones. Jin Yihang was admiring the wealth contained in the mineral vein. According to Northern Darkstar Territory official army's message, the blood gems contained in this mineral vein are more than 3 billion caddies, with its value being more than 30 billion primordial stones, reported a peak Earth ultimate god behind him. 30 billion primordial stones? The other peak Earth ultimate gods were shocked and began discussing. I really didn't expect there would be such a large mineral vein in an ordinary stellar region. Their territorial lord is going to make a fortune. Yes, according to Crimson Stone Fort's rules, we should reward the stellar region who discovered and reported to the Crimson Stone Fort of such valuable natural treasures like mineral veins. In this case, Crimson Stone Fort will only take away 90% of the treasures and give the remaining 10% to the territorial lord as a reward. It's impossible to leave 1/10 worth of such a huge treasure that's more than 30 billion primordial stones behind. I'm guessing that 1% is probably the capping amount. It's worth more than 300 million primordial stones even at only 1%. Many heaven ultimate gods' net worths are less than 100 million primordial stones. This territorial lord has hit it big. The 4 peak Earth ultimate gods were green with envy during their conversation. They envied the Northern Darkstar territorial lord. Jin Yihang was unhappy when he heard their conversation. What nonsense! Jin Yihang rebuked. Listen up. No one will bring up the reward later. Northern Darkstar territory is under Crimson Stone Fort's jurisdiction and even manages the entire Danyang Holy Domain. Crimson Stone Fort is out to mine it since a blood gem mineral vein appears in the Danyang Holy Domain. What does it have to do with the Northern Darkstar territorial lord? The 4 peak Earth ultimate gods looked at each other and did not say anything, but they knew what was going. Jin Yihang did not want to leave anything for the Northern Darkstar territorial lord, and wanted to take the share that was supposed to be the Northern Darkstar territorial lords. Jian Wushuang, Song Heng, and the other commanders had emerged from the camp and soon appeared in front of Jian Heng. A pleasure to meet Master Inspector. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly while maintaining a humble posture in front of the inspector. Jian, I didn't expect to meet you again so soon. Jian Heng coldly stared at Jian Wushuang. He still remembered how he had suffered a loss from Jian Wushuang and was being resentful. I haven't seen you for many years, but you still haven't changed a bit. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Let's not carry on with the small talks. I'm here to first confirm whether there are such a large amount of blood gems mineral vein here. Crimson Stone Fort will naturally send a higher-level expert to acquire it upon confirmation. You should show me around this mineral vein at this instance, said Jian Heng. No problem. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He beckoned Song Heng to take Jian Heng and the others to survey the blood gem mineral vein. They were done with the survey in just a few moments. It's indeed a huge blood gem mineral vein. The amount of blood gems within is a lot and of extremely high value. Jian Heng tightly clasped his hands with an excited expression. However, he soon calmed down and peered coldly at Jian Wushuang. I've checked the blood gem mineral vein, and we now shall wait for the high-level experts from Crimson Stone Fort to arrive, acquire, and start mining it. There's nothing for you to do here, so you can go back for the time being. Jian Wushuang's face sank but did not make a move. Jian Heng told them to leave, but said nothing about the benefits and rewards they deserved to get. Master Inspector, the Northern Darkstar territory must be handed over the Crimson Stone Fort when something like the blood gem mineral vein appears according to Crimson Stone Fort's rules. If I remember correctly, doesn't Northern Darkstar territory also get to keep a portion of it? Said Jian Wushuang. Is there such a rule? Why don't I know of it? Jian Heng pretended to be puzzled and even glanced at the four-peak Earth ultimate gods behind him. Do we really have this rule in Crimson Stone Fort? The four-peak Earth ultimate gods looked at each other and denied the existence of that rule out of fear they would offend Jian Heng. Jian, you heard it yourself. Crimson Stone Fort doesn't have this rule at all. You were wrong. Jian Heng smiled evilly. I was wrong. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly. What Master Inspector means is that this blood gem mineral vein has nothing to do with Northern Darkstar territory. That's exactly what I mean. Jian Heng smiled sinisterly. All right. Jian Wushuang glanced at Jian Heng before turning around and left. Jian Heng was smiling even wider when he saw that. However, Commander Song Heng, Jian Wushuang ordered, tell the official army to retreat immediately and head back to the Northern Darkstar territory. Yes. Song Heng obeyed. Wait. Jian Heng was in horror and said in a low voice, Jian, what are you doing? Jian Wushuang turned around and sneered. Isn't it strange for you to ask this question, Master Inspector? You said that this blood gem mineral vein has nothing to do with my Northern Darkstar territory. In that case, the official army doesn't need to spend their time guarding this area. I'll leave this completely to you. Let's go. Jian Wushuang led Song Heng and the remaining commanders away. They were about to leave the area. Stop! Jian Heng shouted in a low voice. You can go, but the official army has to stay. Why is that so? Jian Wushuang asked quizzically. No particular reason. I need your official army, said Jian Heng. He could not help it. He could care less if Jian Wushuang had left and was what he wanted. However, he did not think the same about the official army. The blood gem mineral vein is so huge, hence it's quite difficult to mine and would need many cultivators to work mining it. They would need to monitor and guard the many cultivators mining the mineral vein to prevent things from going wrong. Jian Heng was an inspector sent by the Crimson Stone Fort, but only had 5 people in the team including himself. The 5 were enough to guard the blood gem mineral vein but were short-handed to fully monitor the mining activities and ensure the cultivators did not secretly hide a stash of the blood gems. A little carelessness was enough to lead to complete riots with many blood gems gone by then. That was why he needed the official army. The mining of blood gem would be safe and secure with 2 or 3 out of the 10 battalions guarding the mineral vein. Even though stealing seemed inevitable, the impact would not be big. Jian Wushuang knew Jin Yihang's intentions as he cracked a smile and said, "Master, you won't give the northern Darkstar territory any benefits, but want my official army to guard the blood gem mineral vein. Can there be such a good deal in life? I don't care much, but you'll have to ask these commanders if they are willing to guard it for you." Song Hong and several other commanders who were behind Jian Wushuang stared at Jin Yihang with indifferent expressions. Although they were not in a position to protest due to the other party's identity, they looked extremely dissatisfied. What a joke! Who would be willing to work without any returns? Jin Yihang's complexion gradually became ugly under the few commanders' gaze. "Let's go." Jian Wushuang waved his hand again. Jin Yihang's complexion turned ashen. "Humph, you have to get my consent before leaving here. The four of you, go get and kill them if they dare resist," ordered Jin Yihang coldly. The four peak Earth ultimate gods behind Jin Yihang looked at each other and immediately stepped forward. "Sorry, we're only following orders," said a white-robed, middle-aged man among the four. "Just surrender yourself so that you'll suffer less. Otherwise," said an old man with red eyebrows. Jian Wushuang's expression turned cold as the four peak Earth ultimate gods approached. Buzz, 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 buzz. The transmigration power-filled infernal crimson divine swords were suspended in front of Jian Wushuang. Song Hong and the other commanders were staring at Jian Wushuang behind him. Those commanders were merely peak ultimate gods and unable to fight against the peak Earth ultimate gods. Hence Jian Wushuang was their only hope in walking away safely. They had witnessed how Jian Wushuang defeated the Green Flame Territorial Lord, who was also a peak Earth ultimate god. However, there were four peak Earth ultimate gods in front of Jian Wushuang at that moment. "Congeal," Jian Wushuang indifferently said. The 9 infernal crimson divine swords immediately overlapped at an astonishing speed before causing a huge and endless reincarnation passage to appear out of thin air. A black divine sword encased with the transmigration power shot out from the end of that passage. The first level of transmigration sword formation. Heaven's Edge. Boom! The black divine sword was like a huge awl with a terrifying power that went straight at the four peak Earth ultimate gods. "So stubborn. How dare you fire the first shot when facing 4 of us? He can't blame us since he has a death wish." The four peak Earth ultimate gods' expressions became cold as the 4 took action together. The 4 of them discharged their divine power breath and were noticeably much stronger than the Green Flame Territorial Lord. Any one of them was more powerful than that of the Green Flame Territorial Lord. The 4 of them then joined forces. As a result, boom, 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 boom. 4 consecutive collisions blasted in the void before 4 people were sent flying like cannonballs. The 4 people spewed blood as their divine power breath instantly died down along with the explosions. Jian Wushuang was concurrently fighting alone against the 4 peak Earth ultimate gods. The 4 peak Earth ultimate gods were completely defeated in just one blow. "Humph!" Jian Wushuang snorted coldly. The black divine sword that resembled a huge awl shook slightly before a monstrous power erupted from it and charged toward Jin Yihang in the void. "Shit!" Jin Yihang was taken aback. How could he think of resisting the blow as a merely high-level Earth ultimate god when even 4 peak Earth ultimate gods had been hit hard from the black divine sword's impact? No. Stop it!" Jin Yihang hysterically pleaded. However, the black divine sword did not hold back and went straight at his divine body. Jin Yihang's physical protection methods collapsed as the terrifying power instantly passed through his body. Boom! Jin Yihang felt that he was hit hard by a huge world with its power grinding his body. His internal organs were displaced as blood poured out from his eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. The impact would be enough to instantly kill Jin Yihang had Jian Wushuang not held back toward the end. Whoosh! Jin Yihang barely managed to stand firm in the void with his pale face whereas his body was trembling violently. His divine power breath was at its weakest as though he could be completely wiped out at any time. Song Hong and several other commanders watched in disbelief. They knew that Jian Wushuang's combat power was at the peak Earth ultimate god level and should be considered extremely strong among peak Earth ultimate gods upon seeing Jian Wushuang defeat the Green Flame Territorial Lord. However, They had never expected Jian Wushuang's combat prowess to be so strong. The 4 peak Earth ultimate gods who joined forces were instantly defeated without breaking a sweat. His combat prowess level was probably comparable with Heaven ultimate gods, right? You! How dare you hurt me? Jin Yihong's eyes widened, followed by a loud shriek as he was looking at Jian Wushuang in malice and folly. Hurt you? The corner of Jian Wushuang's lips was slightly raised. No! I'm afraid you've misunderstood. Believe it or not only would I dare hurt you, but I also dare kill you too. Jian Wushuang's smiling expression looked like a devilish smile to Jin Yihong at that moment. No, you absolutely will not dare. I'm an inspector from the Crimson Stone Fort. Crimson Stone Fort will never let you go if you kill me. Jin Yihong roared with his deliberate loud tone and seemed to be cheering for himself. He firmly believed that Jian Wushuang would only hurt him at most and never thought that Jian Wushuang would ever kill him. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang would have killed him just now when he got the chance. Jian Wushuang looked at Jin Yihong and sneered. You're really stupid. So what if I kill you? Don't forget that the blood gem mineral vein is still in my hands. I believe many factions will be interested in this mineral vein if I release the news. Would the likes of Nanwu Palace, Divine Demon Sect, Life and Death Tower, Dongfang Clan, and such care about the Crimson Stone Fort? Do you think they won't accept it were I to share this mineral vein with them in return for their protection? Jin Yihong was horrified. His pride, self-righteousness, and envious background in the Crimson Stone Fort collapsed. He might be full of himself, but he was no fool. He knew what Jian Wushuang said was true. Jian Wushuang was indeed capable of killing him on the spot. Jin Yihong's attitude began to change after recognizing the fact. Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord. No, Master Jian Yi. Jin Yihong forced a smile on his face. That's just a misunderstanding. We can slowly talk about it now. Talk about it? What do you want to talk about? Jian Wushuang sneered. Jin Yihong's divine power breath was extremely weak as he quickly took out a few elixir pills and swallowed them. He opened his mouth after a couple of breaths while still feeling a little weak and said, The blood gem mineral vein appeared in Northern Darkstar territory and was acquired by the official army earlier. Northern Darkstar territory can indeed keep a part of the wealth after alerting the Crimson Stone Fort of its existence according to the rules. However, this blood gem should be of no use to you, so we will replace it with primordial stones. Crimson Stone Fort will fork out 50 million primordial stone as a reward for Northern Darkstar territory who discovered and guarded this blood gem mineral vein. How about that? 50 million primordial stones? Song Hong and the other commanders were shocked and overjoyed. Primordial stones in the millions were exorbitant to those peak ultimate god commanders, as many of them could not earn even 1 million primordial stones in their lifetime. It was not hard to imagine how happy they were with those 50 million primordial stones. They had never seen such a huge amount of primordial stones ever since they started cultivation. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang was a little dissatisfied when he heard the amount. 50 million primordial stones is too little. Are you trying to dismiss beggars? Don't forget that this blood gem mineral vein is huge with its value of more than 30 billion primordial stones. How dare you offer us 50 million primordial stones? Jin Yihong was a little embarrassed and spoke again after a little hesitation. 100 million primordial stones. Nothing more. 100 million. The few commanders gasped. Jian Wushuang groaned slightly. 100 million primordial stones was not much for Jian Wushuang at that moment. However, he knew that he was merely a territorial lord with a combat power of at most Heaven ultimate god. The Crimson Stone Fort was considered a powerful force to Jian Wushuang, so he could not ask for too much. Just as previously described, Crimson Stone Fort was taking the meat while Northern Darkstar territory could only just have its gravy. He got 100 million out of the 30 billion primordial stones. 1/300th was still quite a lot. Just 100 million then, but I have a condition, said Jian Wushuang. What condition? Jin Yihong glanced over. I don't need primordial stones. I want divine elixir pills. You'll have to replace the 100 million primordial stones with an equivalent amount of divine elixir pills, which comes to 20 divine elixir pills, said Jian Wushuang. Jin Yihong roared. No way. A divine elixir pill's market price is worth 5 million primordial stones. However, the fact remains that you might not even be able to exchange them for a single divine elixir pill even if you fork out 10 million primordial stones. Although Crimson Stone Fort has an extraordinary background and a lot of elixir pills, we'll never give away 20 divine elixir pills as a reward. It's simply impossible. Genie Hong paused before continuing, 15, at most 15 divine elixir pills. I have to get approval from the Crimson Stone Fort's high-level management to personally agree to this condition for this. Just 15 it is. You may get the approval now. Jian Wushuang smiled. He never expected to get 20 divine elixir pills and thought it was quite good if they could get even 10. 15 was beyond his expectations. According to his estimations, he would need about 20 divine elixir pills to make a breakthrough from peak ultimate god to primary level earth ultimate god. He had already obtained 4 divine elixir pills and would have 19 divine elixir pills when he received the 15 from Crimson Stone Fort. It should allow him to attempt a breakthrough to the primary level earth ultimate god realm. Genie Hong sent a message to the Crimson Stone Fort's higher-ups and soon received a response. Jianyi Crimson Stone Fort agreed to 15 divine elixir pills. Lord King Scorpion will soon arrive from Crimson Stone Fort a few days later and personally give you the divine elixir pills, said Jin Yihong. The corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth was slightly raised. Let's go. Jian Wushuang waved his hand and headed back to the camp with Cong Hong and the other commanders, ignoring Jin Yihong and his entourage. Back in the camp, I can't believe that Crimson Stone Fort agreed to 15 divine elixir pills. I thought it's already extremely generous of Crimson Stone Fort to give tens of millions of primordial stones. Who knew they would agree to give 15 divine elixir pills? This is also because our territorial lord is powerful. I'm afraid this inspector would have really not given us even a single primordial stone and make us work in vain if our territorial lord was someone ordinary. Although we'll be dissatisfied, there's nothing we can do about it. A few commanders were sighing and admiring Jian Wushuang. Territorial lord, did you know that the Crimson Stone Fort higher-ups would agree to your request for 15 divine elixir pills? Song Hong looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang shook his head before continuing. No, I wasn't sure. Although I'm not sure whether they'll agree to give me 15 divine elixir pills, they'll agree to give us a huge sum of primordial stones as they aren't as stupid as Genie Hong. This rule of the stellar region having a share of the wealth upon the discovery of any valuable resources in their stellar regions has been enforced by the Crimson Stone Fort for a long time to satisfy the stellar region's territorial lord and official army. Take this blood gem mineral vein as an example. If the Northern Darkstar territory hands over to the Crimson Stone Fort without receiving any benefits, the Northern Darkstar territory will never again do so for any new resources in the future. Secondly, even if Crimson Stone Fort used some despicable means and forced us to guard the blood gem mineral vein, our armies will be dissatisfied and might even do a lousy job of monitoring and guarding. The official army might even pocket some blood gems which caused Crimson Stone Fort to end up losing even more. Crimson Stone Fort won't be so stupid to make that sort of decision. The commanders nodded in agreement. A few days later, Jian Wushuang arrived with a few official army commanders in the void above the blood gem mineral vein. Genie Hong and the others respectfully stood there and waited as more than 10 black spots soon appeared in the void. Those more than 10 black spots were getting larger as they approached and soon appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Genie Hong meets Lord Scorpion King. Genie Hong and the 4 peak earth ultimate gods behind him immediately bowed and saluted before Jian Wushuang, and the official army commanders followed suit. Jian Wushuang was observing those people's strength at the same time. He was quite shaken up after his observation. The more than a dozen people were experts above the heaven ultimate god realm. Especially the beefy middle-aged man Lord King Scorpion King wearing black armor and leading the group. His divine power breath had completely exceeded the heaven ultimate god realm. He was a grand ultimate god. Crimson Stone Fort had sent a grand ultimate god along with more than a dozen heaven ultimate gods. It only showed how much attention the Crimson Stone Fort paid toward the blood gem mineral vein. Jin Yihong? Jin Yan's younger generation. The beefy middle-aged man. Lord King Scorpion glanced at Jin Yihong and snorted softly. The light snort seemed insouciant, But Jian Wushuang saw and got the idea. He could see that Lord King Scorpion was a bit displeased with Jin Yihang, to be precise with Jin Yen. Are they from different factions? Jian Wushuang muttered secretly. He knew that Crimson Stone Fort was divided into many factions. Those factions fought overtly and covertly, but matters never got too ugly. The Lord King Scorpion's behavior toward Jin Yen and Jin Yihang clearly showed that they were not part of his faction. Are you the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord? Lord King Scorpion looked at Jian Wushuang again. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded in neither a humble nor pert manner. Here are the 15 divine elixir pills that you wanted. Lord King Scorpion waved and threw an interspatial ring over before saying, I've given the divine elixir pills to you, but I hope the blood gem mineral vein mining will go smoothly with no more changes. Otherwise, Master, don't worry. Our Northern Darkstar Territory official army will go all out to ensure there'll be no problems in mining the blood gems, said Jian Wushuang. That's good. Lord King Scorpion nodded. Commander Song Hung, let's start mining, said Jian Wushuang. Yes. Song Hung immediately acted. Jian Wushuang had already sent someone to gather cultivators for mining the blood gems before Lord King Scorpion and the others even turned up. The refinement materials for Heavenly Treasure's blood gems were not easy to mine as it's extremely hard and buried deep underground. Hence cultivators who worked on mining must at least be in the divine demon realm. Precisely second-class divine demons and even first-class divine demons. They must also possess a tyrannical divine power foundation before they could mine the blood gems. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate to spend a lot of money and brought in a large number of divine demons from other wildernesses for that reason. A few 10,000 divine demon realm cultivators were gathered as a result of Jian Wushuang promising them a lot of benefits in return. A few 10,000 cultivators had started mining under Jian Wushuang's commands, while the official army dispatched 4 army battalions to guard the area, whilst the others returned to Northern Darkstar Territory. As for Jian Wushuang, he returned to the camp and immediately began seclusion cultivation. Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged in an exquisite attic, completely covered by the restrictive shield with the 19 divine elixir pills before him. I hope the 19 diviner elixir pills won't let me down. Jian Wushuang was excited as he began to absorb and refine those divine elixir pills. Time flew past in the blink of an eye and soon a month had passed. Jian Wushuang had been sitting with his eyes closed in the attic where he suddenly shook before sharply opening his eyes that shone brightly. The divine power breath from his body was many times stronger than before. What good luck! Although I've only swallowed 19 divine elixir pills, I still managed to make a breakthrough. I'm now an Earth Ultimate God. There was a huge gap between the strength of an Earth Ultimate God and an ordinary Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang went from the peak Ultimate God realm to the primary level Earth Ultimate God realm. Thereby, his overall strength was greatly improved. Now, even if I don't use the stately painting and settle with just having a few secret techniques, I should be able to compete against the ordinary Heaven Ultimate Gods. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands tightly. He looked surprised. Soon, Jian Wushuang walked out of the attic. After walking out, he did not deliberately conceal his aura. He was originally giving away the aura of a primary-level Earth Ultimate God. Under the cover of the Black Stone, he exuded an aura of a peak Earth Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang went up into the void and wandered around the blood gem mineral vein. Tens of thousands cultivators were gathered in the huge mineral vein, mining the blood gem. Suddenly, something that was happening on a big tree not far away attracted Jian Wushuang's attention. That big tree was located at a high place. Hence, it was conspicuous. However, what really caught Jian Wushuang's attention was that there were more than a dozen dead bodies hanging from the trunk of the big tree. Those corpses hanging from the tree trunk were obviously there as a warning. Song Hung. Jian Wushuang spoke, his voice echoing. Song Hung came up behind Jian Wushuang in just a jiffy. What's going on? Jian Wushuang pointed at the dozen corpses hanging from the tree and asked in a cold tone. Master, those people were killed by the inspector 10 days ago, Song Hung replied. It's such a big mineral vein with tens of thousands of people mining. Some people escaped the official army surveillance and stole some of the blood gems. This is inevitable. However, the inspector did an ad hoc body search on some cultivators who were mining. He forcibly searched for some treasures on them. As a result, more than a dozen people were found to be hiding some blood gems. In fact, the amount found on them wasn't much, mostly one caddy or two caddies. The inspector killed them nonetheless and then left them hanging on the tree. Besides, he also reprimanded the official army for not doing a good job. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly after hearing it. He knew that was beating the dog before the lion to serve as a deterrent to the miners. The inspector had not done anything wrong, but Jian Wushuang thought that the inspector was heavy-handed. Did Jin Yihang ask to check the official army's interspatial rings? Jian Wushuang asked. No, he didn't, answered Song Hung. Okay, pass the order to those divine demon realm miners that I'll pay them 3 times more than the original agreed amount after they're done with it. Tell them to work honestly and don't try to get out of line. Otherwise, they might survive if the official army found out, but they won't be that lucky with the inspector. I won't be able to save them if it happens, said Jian Wushuang. Yes. Song Hung nodded. By the way, have you distributed the primordial stones that I gave to all the army brothers? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, it's all done. Song Hung cracked a smile immediately. Master, you gave us 10 million primordial stones at one go. All of us got quite a fair bit after the division. The peak divine demon realm armies received around hundreds each. Primary level ultimate god sergeants and high-level ultimate god captains received a little bit more, and of course, the commanders enjoyed a bigger amount. The brothers in the army are very grateful for Master. Song Hung was telling the truth. Jian Wushuang received 15 divine elixir pills from Crimson Stone Fort, which he needed all of it for himself. Then again, he would never mistreat his official army, so he took out 10 million primordial stones to distribute among the armies. There were 10,000 men in each battalion, and there were altogether 10 battalions. Each of the armies got a fair share from the pool of primordial stones, especially the 10 commanders. They were grateful to their territorial lord Jian Wushuang. Okay, let the brothers continue to be on guard. I'll fork out another batch of primordial stones to distribute among the brothers when the mining is over and the Crimson Stone Fort officials have left. Jian Wushuang smiled, waved his hand and returned to the camp. Then, he began cultivating on his own. Thereafter, the blood gem mining was progressing smoothly. With Jian Wushuang's promise, many of the divine demon realm miners were able to keep mining with a peace of mind. There were not many of them who would risk getting caught stealing the blood gems. Actually, they had no idea what the blood gem was and how much it cost. They would not want to risk the consequences of stealing when Jian Wushuang had clearly given them a good promise. In addition, what Jin Yihang did earlier served the deterrence effect. 2 years had passed. This mineral vein was extremely huge and there were billions of caddies of blood gems. It was extremely high in value and it was extremely difficult to mine. Therefore, after the few 10,000 demon realm cultivators had been mining for 2 years, they had only managed to complete 1/3 of it. Back in the camp, Jian Wushuang was sitting in the attic, quietly comprehending the Fenshin scroll. Without warning, Master! Song Heng's voice came from outside the attic. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes. Commander Song Heng, what's the matter? Something is on. Come and have a look quickly. Song Heng sounded anxious. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate. He put away the Fengtian scroll and went out with Song Heng. Soon, Song Heng led Jian Wushuang to one of the mines. There were countless mines where the few tens of thousand people were mining. Jian Wushuang arrived at an ordinary mine. There were 2 commanders with several divine demon realm miners in the mine. Song Heng, what is going on? Jian Wushuang asked. Master, look at that. Song Heng pointed in one direction. Jian Wushuang glanced over and what he saw was a stone wall in the mine. The stone wall was made of blocks of blood gems. The gems were in light hazy blood color. Those gems were the blood gems. However, among the many blood gems on the stone wall, Jian Wushuang spotted a piece of gem in a much darker shade than the other blood gems. It was a complete blood red in color. The other blood gems were in a faint blood color and some had blood streaks in them. But the one that Jian Wushuang saw was deep red in color like blood. Could this be the legendary royal blood gem? Jian Wushuang went wide-eyed in surprise and his heart was beating fast. Royal Blood Gem was the king of blood gems. There were rumors that only large billion caddies blood gem mineral veins would have a small chance of finding a royal blood gem. It was extremely hard to get one royal blood gem out of hundreds or even thousands of blood gem mineral veins under normal circumstances. The value of the royal blood gem was naturally worth far more compared to ordinary blood gems. Ordinary blood gems were used to refine some ordinary heavenly treasures, whereas royal blood gems were used to refine holy treasures. It was the main refinement material for many holy treasures. The bright red gem embedded in the stone wall before their eyes was a royal blood gem. This blood gem mineral vein not only has more than 3 billion caddies of blood gems, but also produced a royal blood gem. Jian Wushuang was secretly admiring the gem before turning around and asked, "Who's the first to discover this gem?" A first-class divine demon in the mine immediately stepped forward and respectfully answered, "Master, it's me. I was the first to discover this gem. I initially thought this gem was the same as others with merely a darker color shade, and I didn't care too much about it. However, I found it to be far harder than ordinary gems when I was about to remove them from the wall. I will usually be able to crack an ordinary gem with just one blow of my axe, while a few blows would get it off the wall. This one was different, as I've tried chopping it a few times with my axe using all my might, but it won't even budge and there isn't even a crack on it. I immediately knew this gem was extraordinary, so I invited the commander over." After the first-class divine demon finished speaking, Song Hung also took a step forward and softly whispered, "Master, I've checked that this person is telling the truth. He immediately told the official army to get me the moment he found this gem is extraordinary. He didn't tell anyone about his discovery, while I've also covered up the news. Everyone who knows about this gem is in this mine as of now." Jian Wushuang glanced at everyone in the mine and nodded slightly. "Master, this gem is a rare find if I'm not mistaken, and it's probably countless times more precious than blood gems. Although we only have this single piece of royal blood gem, its value is probably higher than the entire mineral vein. The most important matter is that we're the only ones who know about this royal blood gem. The people from Crimson Stone Fort don't know about it yet," said Song Hung in a low voice. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He knew what Song Hung was trying to convey. People are greedy. Song Hung and Jian Wushuang were no exception. Taking the blood gem mineral vein as an example, who would not be tempted by a blood gem mineral vein worth a few tens of billion primordial stones? Who would not want to own the mine? It would require a lot of manpower to mine such a large mineral vein. Hence it was impossible to hide from the Crimson Stone Fort, as there was no way to drown the commotion. They had no choice but to inform the Crimson Stone Fort of its existence. The royal blood gem was a different game altogether. He could remove that single piece of royal blood gem and hide it. The Crimson Stone Fort would not be able to find out as long as he was able to shut the mouth of those people present in the mine. They would never imagine Jian Wushuang was hiding a piece of royal blood gem. The royal blood gem was too rare after all, with the probability of getting one in a large blood gem mineral vein extremely minimal. Crimson Stone Fort had never thought there would be a royal blood gem in the mineral vein, and neither had it ever crossed Jian Wushuang's mind. "Don't worry. Send someone to guard outside, and do not allow anyone to come in. Let's take it down first before we continue talking," ordered Jian Wushuang. "Yes." Song Hung immediately sent someone to guard outside. They did not make it obvious, but tried to act normal and were cautious not to attract others' attention instead. Jian Wushuang started digging out the royal blood gem. "Master, this royal blood gem is so hard. I've made an attempt before, but failed," said Song Hung. "Leave it to me." Jian Wushuang pulled out his Blood Mountain sword from behind and was about to do it himself. The Blood Mountain sword traced the royal blood gem's outline under the guidance of surging divine power. The royal blood gem then was cut out neatly in an instant. As expected, Jian Wushuang chuckled. Although he did not cut the royal blood gems directly, and only cutting the ordinary blood gems on its edge, the neighboring blood gems were also affected due to close vicinity with the royal blood gems, making them harder than ordinary blood gems. It was almost impossible to cut the gem out so neatly if one was a peak Earth ultimate god or even a heaven ultimate god. Jian Wushuang was able to do so not only due to his strength but his Blood Mountain sword, which played a great role. The Blood Mountain sword was his life divine weapon and extremely sharp, so cutting blood gems was not a problem at all. The royal blood gem was pulled out from the stone wall by Jian Wushuang in just a few moments. Due to the royal blood gem's considerably large size and also some ordinary blood gems that were trapped in the middle, Jian Wushuang had to divide the royal blood gem into 3 before removing those ordinary blood gems to maintain its purity. So we have 3 pieces of royal blood gems. Jian Wushuang looked intently at the 3 royal blood gems. Those 3 royal blood gems were of different sizes, with the smallest only the size of a thumb. However, the thumb-sized piece of royal blood gems surprisingly weighed 10 caddies due to its high density. One of the remaining 2 pieces was the size of a baby's fist as Jian Wushuang held it in his hand, felt its weight, and estimated it to be more than 200 caddies. The last piece was the largest and most complete form, with the size of an adult's head. Jian Wushuang held it in his hand and estimated its weight to be more than 10,000 caddies. 10,000 caddies of royal blood gem. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands together with shining eyes. He knows how rare and precious the royal blood gem was, but had no idea how much a caddy of royal blood gem was worth. He was sure the value for 10,000 caddies of royal blood gem was much higher than the entire mineral vein. Master! Song Hong and the other 2 commanders enthusiastically looked at Jian Wushuang in extreme excitement. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and calmed himself. Come here, all of you. Jian Wushuang glanced at the divine demon realm cultivators. They immediately stepped forward and were a little worried about what was going to happen. There are 1,000 primordial stones in each interspatial ring. Take it. Jian Wushuang handed a few interspatial rings to the divine demon realm cultivators. 1,000 primordial stones? The divine demons were dumbfounded. They were stunned by the huge surprise. Second-class and first-class divine demons like them who remained in the wilderness normally only use ancient god divine power in their transactions. 10,000 ancient god divine power only equated to 1 primordial stone. 1,000 primordial stones meant 10 million ancient god divine power, which was a lot more than the total assets owned by some wilderness sections. Gifting them with such wealth? It was 1,000 primordial stones each. Caught them in a total surprise, of course. However, Jian Wushuang continued to speak. It's true that these primordial stones are for you, but don't get too happy too soon. I'll plant a restrictive spell on each of you that would not activate in normal circumstances. However, I will sense it immediately if you mentioned what happened today to anyone, and the spell will immediately trigger, killing you right there and then. The divine demons shuddered before immediately snapping out of it. Sir, please be assured that we'll never mention what happened today to anyone, said one of them. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and casually planted the restrictive spell on each of them. You may go. The divine demons left the mining cave excited and perturbed as Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Jian Wushuang looked over to Song Hong and the other few commanders before taking out a similar interspatial ring after those divine demons had left. Inside the ring is 20 million primordial stones which you can split among yourselves. All of you are my people, so I won't plant the spell on you. However, I do have to say that you'd better forget about everything you saw here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless, said Jian Wushuang frostily. Aye. Song Hong nodded immediately. Your Excellency, please be assured that we won't utter a word about today's occurrence. The other 2 commanders nodded in agreement. Although 20 million primordial stones was far from the royal blood gem's value, it was quite an astronomical amount to the commanders. Even after they gave some to their soldiers and divided it equally among themselves, they each would still have a few million primordial stones. It was enough to shut them up. Come, let's get out of here. Jian Wushuang and his men left the mining cave, ready to return to camp. On their return path, Northern Dark Star Territorial Lord, where do you think you're going? An evil smile appeared in a void beside them. Jian Wushuang's face turned grim when he looked over and recognized who it was. It was none other than Inspector Genie Hong. Other than him, another person was gliding next to him. A heaven ultimate god. Jian Wushuang would normally not be worried about Genie Hong. However, Jin Yihang paid him a surprise visit right after Jian Wushuang and his men left the mining cave, which made him begin to wonder. Is he suspecting something about what just happened? Jian Wushuang thought to himself but quickly negated the idea. No, I have planted my restrictive spell on those divine demons. They won't have the guts to spill the secret, while Songhang and the rest have been handsomely bribed to the extent they won't receive a better amount even if they told Crimson Stone Fort the secret. Therefore, they have no reason to sell me out either. In addition, those who are present won't only be Jin Yihang if word about Royal Blood Gem is out. However, he was still quite alarmed even after concluding that Jin Yihang was not there for Royal Blood Gem. Mr. Inspector, I just had a detailed investigation of this mineral vein and about to return to the camp. I wonder what's the urgency? Jian Wushuang casually spoke. Oh, I've nothing urgent, but Mr. Qingzhe here is seeking you out for some matters, said Jin Yihang devilishly. The large man next to him stared at Jian Wushuang and asked, So, this man is whom you said easily defeated 4 peak Earth Ultimate Gods while still only at the high-level Earth Ultimate God realm, the Northern Darkstar Territory Lord? He has obviously reached peak Earth Ultimate God according to his aura. It's him, but his aura. Perhaps he just made a breakthrough to that level very recently, said Jin Yihang. The large man called Qingzhe heartily laughed. Breakthrough? Great. Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord, right? My name is Qingzhe. I heard from Inspector Jin that you're a supremely capable and talented fighter, able to easily crush 4 peak Ultimate Gods while still a high-level Earth Ultimate God. However, I have yet to witness those occurrences with my own eyes, so I don't really believe what I've heard. Hence I asked Inspector Jin to bring me here to meet you. I'm here at quite the right timing, as your current ability must be even higher than I initially thought since you have made a breakthrough to peak Earth Ultimate God. Come, let's have a duel. Qingzhe stared at Jian Wushuang like a hunter eyeing his prey. Jian Wushuang's expression turned dark. He had finally figured it out. Qingzhe was someone Jin Yihang brought over to seek troubles. It was most probably because he was unhappy about the fact of being defeated twice previously. Hence he was looking for a chance to take back his pride. Jin Yihang brought a Heaven Ultimate God along, as an Earth Ultimate God was not sufficient to lay a hand on him. There were a dozen Crimson Stone Fort Heaven Ultimate Gods who were guarding the mineral vein, and it was very easy to seek out one of them after all. My ability isn't as strong as the inspector described, but I'm happy to indulge Mr. Qingzhe if you so wish, said Jian Wushuang. Haha. Great. Qingzhe immediately laughed. Let's just do it here. Sure. Jian Wushuang did not waste another word, and immediately with his mind, ring, 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 ring. Infernal crimson divine swords that were shrouded by samsara strength appeared in the void one by one. There were a total of 9 swords, with each stirring the void and forming multiple reincarnation passages. Go! The 9 infernal blood divine swords charged right at Qingzhe like 9 humongous asteroids, as Jian Wushuang pointed. He could already easily defeat a peak Ultimate God with that move before even making a breakthrough to Earth Ultimate God with his full strength. His divine power had increased incredibly since reaching the Earth Ultimate God level, hence the energy from the same move had surged 10 times more than previous. The 9 asteroids arrived before Qingzhe in the blink of an eye with terrifyingly overpowering momentum. His energy is pretty strong for sure. Qingzhe's eyes were shining fervently as he took a step forward with divine power violently gathered in his hand. He began throwing out a series of explosive punches as the Heaven Ultimate God divine power energy burst outward. Boom! 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 A series of 9 impact explosions resonated as those 9 asteroids charged without any hesitation. Everything died down very soon. 9 swords combine. Heaven's Edge. The 9 infernal crimson divine swords overlapped and formed a complete transmigration sword formation as coldness shot out of Jian Wushuang's eyes. At the same time, a surging golden divine power gathered behind Jian Wushuang and formed a 9,000 meters tall golden god shadow in the blink of an eye. The golden god shadow stood tall overlooking heaven and earth as Jian Wushuang's aura once again surged radically. Kill! The black divine sword that was transformed from transmigration sword formation penetrated the void like an awl and appeared once again before Qingzhe. Xianxia was surprised as he could also feel the unusual pressure from the sword formation. He immediately flipped his giant hand as a green battle saber appeared. Whoosh! A sharp saber light flashed like lightning in the sunny sky and clashed head-on against the black divine sword. Clank! The black divine sword trembled slightly and paused for a second in the void before shooting out once again after a brief moment. On the other hand, Xianxia was being stunned backward for a few steps. Not only did Xianxia not get mad after steadying himself, but was also laughing as well. Ha! Your battle strength is really high. Traces of green lightning began appearing on Xianxia's entire body, which covered him like an armor of lightning after a series of crackling sounds. He had also at the same time grown twice from his original size. He then took a step forward with his battle saber swung outward once again. There was literally a bolt of violent green lightning descending from above at that time. Boom! The sound shook the heavens as the black divine sword flew backward and Xianxia retreated 3 steps. Ha! Let's do it again. Xianxia let out loud maniacal laughter while he stepped forward and swung his battle saber again. Jian Wuxuang was not afraid at all as he clashed head-on with Xianxia time and again with his transmigration sword formation. Boom! 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 Violently overpowering energy ruthlessly swept outwards following those continuous collisions. The booming noises resonated between heaven and earth. Countless experts in the blood gem mineral vein, be it divine demon workers, official army soldiers, or even Crimson Stone Fort experts all noticed the activity. Suddenly, many figures flew up. There was a grandiose palace on the peak of one of the mountains as a middle-aged man clad in black battle armor, looking strong like a bull, walked outside from the palace. The middle-aged man was none other than the grand ultimate god, Scorpion King. At that moment, he had also noticed the battle in the void not far from him. It's Xianxia fighting against the man. Huh? Isn't that the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord? Scorpion King was shocked. He had met the Territorial Lord once and recalled him being only a high-level Earth Ultimate God. However, he had already made a breakthrough to the peak Earth Ultimate God in only 2 years. Not only that, he was even fighting fiercely against the Heaven Ultimate God Xianxia as a peak Earth Ultimate God at a similar battle prowess. They were truly at a similar level. Xianxia's saber skills were intense and violent with his overpowering energy. However, Jian Wuxuang's transmigration sword formation energy that burst out had reached the level of a Heaven Ultimate God with the help of Divine God of Punishment. The sword formation attacked continuously and collided against Xianxia's battle saber head-to-head, while showing no signs of losing. Interesting. Scorpion King broke out a smile. The divine power between an Earth Ultimate God and Heaven Ultimate God should be 10 times apart, not to mention the level of their principle and law understanding in addition to various tactics. However, this Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord's abilities are truly quite on par with a Heaven Ultimate God, judging from the way he controls the sword formation. This Northern Darkstar Territory Lord a genius? Genius. Yes, he's surely a genius for unleashing the battle strength comparable to Heaven Ultimate God while being an Earth Ultimate God. There may not even be a small handful of geniuses such as him in the entire Danyang Holy Domain. On the battlefield, Xianxia began to feel quite embarrassed after multiple collisions and not gaining any the least bit of advantage. Especially when there were so many Heaven Ultimate Gods from Crimson Stone Fort around who were laughing and jesting at him. They talk about how a Heaven Ultimate God like him could not even handle a little Earth Ultimate God and brought embarrassment to all Heaven Ultimate Gods, etc. Although they were Xianxia's friends and just ridiculing him with friendliness, it still made Xianxia feel insulted. I'm done with playing games. Xianxia let out a low growl as the green lightning over his body suddenly burst out like a huge electric net spreading across his surroundings. The infinitely intense saber essence spread along with it. Boom! A powerful principal world directly pressed against Jian Wuxuang. The principal world of the Heaven Ultimate God had also reached Profound Realm. Xianxia shuttled in the net, dodging the attacks from Transmigration sword formation, and rushed toward Jian Wuxuang's physical body. Your sword formation is indeed strong, but it's designed for range attacks. I'll easily defeat you as long as I don't go head-on against it like a fool and get close to you, growled Xianxia softly. Is that so? Jian Wushuang sneered on the other hand. A gigantic sword world had befallen. Although Jian Wushuang's sword world was only at merit level and being held back without unleashing the sword world's full potential, the sword world still matched Qingzai's principal world in strength as it struck. What? A merit principal world could match my profound realm. Qingzai was rather surprised but did not care too much as he already appeared before Jian Wushuang. Qingzai held his battle saber in one hand which carried infinite green lightning like a god of thunder. Whoosh! 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 3 continuous strikes violently lashed out at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang sneered as his physical form suddenly shook. Multiple apparitions appeared which filled the entire heaven and earth. There were not less than 300 apparitions in a glance. The apparitions moved unpredictably at lightning speeds such that even Heaven Ultimate God Qingzai could not identify Jian Wushuang's true physical form. The 3 saber lights finally ended up landing on an apparition. A freezing cold sword essence suddenly appeared at the same time. Qingzai subconsciously looked to the side as a tight-knit sword net had shrouded him while countless sword shadows attacked him one after another. Qingzai used his full might to block those sword shadows. Both of them reverted to struggling against each other again as multiple metal clashing sounds started resonating. In the void, 2 figures passed each other by repeatedly and a wave of terrifying energy swept out in a frenzy. They were in an apparently heated battle. Qingzai thought Jian Wushuang was only good at manipulating the sword formation to get close to him, and that Jian Wushuang was no match to Qingzai if they got into a close quarter fight. Little did he know that he was wrong. As soon as he got close to him, he realized that Jian Wushuang's close quarter combat skills were just as good. His understanding of space-time law and sword skills were extremely deep. He was not worried about his opponent getting close. When combining those abilities with the sword formation, he even caused Qingzai quite a bit of anxiety. There was nothing he could. After a long intense fight, Jian Wushuang actually made Qingzai realize that there was nothing he could do. Stop! Qingzai suddenly distanced from him and Jian Wushuang paused his fight. I didn't believe what Inspector Jin's description of you. I didn't believe what he said. Finally, I get to witness it myself. Qingzai looked at Jian Wushuang, rather stunned. At peak Earth Ultimate God's level, you can already easily defeat a peak Earth Ultimate God. And now that you've broken through peak Earth Ultimate God, the power of your battle strength is actually comparable to regular Heaven Ultimate Gods. Even I can't do anything to you. I salute you. You're being too kind. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. Jian Wushuang did not give all he had in the fight, nor did he utilize a lot of his tactics. However, the same could be said for Qingzai. They were merely testing each other out. There was no need to determine who the winner was, nor did they have to fight to death. Even so, the fight was rather meaningful to Jian Wushuang, as he had a basic idea of where his battle strength was at. Inspector Jin. Qingzai looked unhappily at Jin Yihang. You saw it. I simply couldn't do anything to the Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord. I guess you'll have to find someone else to teach him a lesson. Qingzai smiled devilishly and left. Jin Yihang's face was full of embarrassment. Indeed, he personally went to Qingzai and tried many ways to trick him into agreeing to fight Jian Wushuang. His goal was to let Qingzai teach Jian Wushuang a good lesson, just to vent his own dissatisfaction. However, not only Qingzai had nothing on Jian Wushuang, he even sold him out in front of Jian Wushuang and the crowd when he left, revealing that it was Jin Yihang who asked him to come. That was rather unethical to begin with, and on top of that, Qingzai revealed it deliberately. Mr. Inspector. As expected, Jian Wushuang looked at Jin Yihang directly and said coldly, You're a respectable inspector from the Crimson Stone Fort. Every word you said and every action you carry out represents the fort. How can you be so despicable? Jin Yihang shuddered, but he could find no words to talk back. Let's go, said Jian Wushuang and went back to the camp with the official army commanders. Jin Yihang stood in the void, clearly sensing that many pairs of eyes looked at him in a strange way. Many of those looks were from the divine demon miners and official army soldiers. There were also some Heaven Ultimate Gods from the Crimson Stone Fort. The Heaven Ultimate Gods looked at him tauntingly in disdain. That made Jin Yihang even more embarrassed. He could not stay any longer and left quickly. On the peak not so far away, Scorpion King, who was in full battle armor and strong like a bull, smiled mysteriously. Northern Dark Star Territorial Lord, never have I thought such an incredible genius exists in this tiny stellar region. Very interesting. Crimson Stone Fort is in a terrible situation as it's facing pressure from a few top powers from the outside. The factions within Crimson Stone Fort itself are a big threat to the Fort Master as well. At this moment, the Fort Master is in dire need to train some experts to support her. Although this Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord is only an Earth Ultimate God, he is extremely gifted. It's worth the effort to try persuading him. After mumbling a little, Scorpion King went back into the palace. After Jian Wushuang returned to the camp, he dismissed Song Hong and the rest and went back to the exquisite penthouse. As soon as he arrived at the penthouse, he set up a restrictive shield, then flipped his hand and took out the smallest sized royal blood gem, which was as tiny as a thumb. Royal blood gem? Looking at the royal blood gem before him, Jian Wushuang's eyes burned with passion. Although I don't know the exact value of this blood gem, as the main material to cultivate holy treasure, it must be unusually valuable. The value of this little thumb-sized piece that I'm holding, which doesn't weigh more than 10 pounds, must be beyond my imagination. I also possess one that is 200 pounds and another one 10,000 pounds. The total value must be, I'm rich. This time I'm going to be rich. Jian Wushuang was incredibly excited. At that point, he did not need to cultivate any treasure. The royal blood gems were of no use to him. Looking at it, Jian Wushuang could almost see countless divine elixir pills that could help him break through his current level, making his ability increase drastically. No hurry, we're still in the process of mining royal blood gems, so I can't leave for the time being. I need to wait till later, when the gems are all being mined and when the dust is settled, before I can find a chance to bring royal blood gems to exchange for divine elixir pills. Repressing his excitement, Jian Wushuang calmed as soon as he could. At the same time, he was slightly alert. He knew he had made a fortune, but it was a windfall which was supposed to be kept a secret. As soon as people from Crimson Stone Fort or other powers knew that a little territorial lord obtained 10,000 pounds of royal blood gem, there would be many who would keep an eye on him. In the penthouse, Jian Wushuang gradually shut his eyes and began to cultivate himself. The cultivation only lasted for a day. Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord. A resonant voice came above the campground. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and went up to the void above in just a flash. Glancing at the visitor, Jian Wushuang was stunned. Mr. Qingzhe, why are you here? It was none other than Qingzhe, the man he fought a day ago. Haha, your ability is not below me, so never mind the honorable addresses. Just call me Qingzhe. Qingzhe seemed to be very easygoing. Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord, come with me. Where to? Asked Jian Wushuang. Master Scorpion King wants to see you. He asked me to bring you there, explained Qingzhe. Jian Wushuang was a little stunned. Mr. Scorpion King, the grand ultimate god of Crimson Stone Fort, wanted to see him? Perhaps it was because of the battle that happened? Although he was perplexed, Jian Wushuang still went with Qingzhe immediately. In the majestic palace hall, the bullish battle armor-clad middle-aged man Scorpion King sat up straight on the throne. Master Scorpion King. Qingzhe brought Jian Wushuang into the palace hall and bowed respectfully. Scorpion King raised his head and glanced at Qingzhe. Leave us. Aye. Qingzhe turned around right away and left. Only Jian Wushuang and Scorpion King were left in the palace hall. Northern Darkstar Territorial Lord, Jian. Scorpion King's eyes stayed on Jian Wushuang's face while wearing a faint smile. I looked at your information just now and learned that you haven't been the Territorial Lord for very long. Only a dozen years. It has only been around 20 years if I include the time you first made a name for yourself in the Northern Darkstar continent, and that you were only a primary-level ultimate god 20 years ago. You have jumped from a primary-level ultimate god and become a peak Earth ultimate god with battle strength comparable to a heaven ultimate god within merely 20 years. Your cultivation speed is truly terrifying. He appeared to be calm as usual as Jian Wushuang listened. Many had known about him on the northern Darkstar continent. Hence he was not at all surprised that Scorpion King did as well. Master Scorpion King, I'm just slightly faster in absorbing and cultivating divine power compared to others. On top of that, I have enough resources to cultivate, hence my level could go up so fast, said Jian Wushuang. I know that. The Scorpion King nodded. There were many in the northern Darkstar continent who guessed that you relied on absorbing huge amounts of external divine power like cultivating and absorbing divine powers from primordial stones to increase your cultivation level. This method is not uncommon in the ancient god domain, but there's a criterion for those who bravely use this method, which is to ensure their law and principle understanding are compatible. You won't only be unable to make a breakthrough even after accumulating enough divine power without sufficient law and principle understanding. You may even reach a bottleneck. In addition, excessive reliance on external force to upgrade one's cultivation will affect one's foundations quite a bit. Normally, anybody who chooses to do this will have absolute confidence in himself. I noticed your understanding of laws and sword principle is way above your cultivation level as I watched your fight with Xianxia yesterday. You're only an Earth Ultimate God, but your understanding of space-time law, transmigration law, and sword principle are comparable to a Heaven Ultimate God. I would even say it's higher than regular Heaven Ultimate Gods. Your foundation is also incredibly strong and unaffected from using those external resources. You have progressed so much while still able to keep your foundation intact in only 20 years. It shows that you're a true genius. Jian Wushuang's heart was calm and did not get excited by Scorpion King's praise altogether. He knew that he was merely relying on his perfect foundation as a perfect chaotic creature to fearlessly ingesting external divine power and increase his divine power. His foundation was indestructible, not to mention his understanding of laws and sword principles had exceeded his current cultivation level. All those reasons enabled him to make a breakthrough without encountering any bottleneck. Hence, the side effects of absorbing external divine power did not shake his foundation at all. Jianyi, geniuses like you are rare even in the Golden Crow 9 realms, not to mention our Danyang Holy Domain. You could have joined any of the great powers if you truly so wished, such as Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, who only pick the cream of the crop. The resources you can get will be a lot more if you had joined them, and you may have progressed even faster. However, those great powers in the 9 realms of Golden Crows like Dragon Phoenix Pavilion are very powerful, and have many genius disciples which will have spread thin the resources available for sure. Therefore, many geniuses won't receive the kind of nurturing they deserve, and will rather join slightly lesser powers to cultivate under such situations. For example, the sacred palace in our Crimson Stone Fort. Jian Wushuang had completely understood the reason he was invited upon reaching that point of Scorpion King's speech. This Scorpion King is trying to persuade me to join Crimson Stone Fort, huh? Jian Wushuang was amused. Jianyi, you may not know what the sacred palace is, so let me explain to you. Scorpion King smiled and said, Sacred Palace was built by the previous fort master, Crimson Stone Saint, who was also our founder. Its function is for nurturing genius disciples, an indisputable concentration camp of geniuses. Many of the geniuses that appeared in any stellar region within the Danyang Holy Domain will choose to join the Sacred Palace. Our new Fort Master is taking Sacred Palace especially seriously now that the old Fort Master is no longer around anymore, with 70% of our resources being allocated to the Sacred Palace. You'll receive maximum nurturing with your talent if you enter the Sacred Palace with resources comparable to those offered by sects like Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, giving you a lot of room for growth. The Scorpion King stared at Jian Wushuang after his speech. Jian Wushuang fell into deep thoughts. He had no interest in Sacred Palace but heard the undertone of Scorpion King's standing. Crimson Stone Fort was in a situation where there were multiple factions within that were causing all kinds of internal conflicts. He could tell from the way Scorpion King spoke that he was probably in the same camp as the new Fort Master in Sewer. Jian Wushuang had inquired about that while on the way here with Xianxia, who gave the same answer. Xianxia, Lord Scorpion King, and the many Heaven Ultimate God that arrived were followers of the new Fort Master, in Sewer's faction, with Jini Hong being the only person from another faction. That was why the Scorpion King had such a deep dislike towards Jini Hong. Jian Wushuang finally said, Lord Scorpion King, I appreciate your thoughts, but I think I'll pass. Scorpion King frowned and sighed in his mind. He was prepared for that, as he knew very well that the Crimson Stone Fort was not what it used to be, and neither was the Sacred Palace. Although Xianxia truly put in more effort to train the Sacred Palace's geniuses, the outcome was less than satisfying. Although his speech sounded fancy and attractive, anybody who knew any better about the situation in Danyang Holy Domain would understand the position Crimson Stone Fort was in. A genius like Jian Wushuang was more than qualified to join top-tier powers like Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and get the best maximized training. Why would he choose to join the Sacred Palace? Scorpion King recognized Jian Wushuang's incredible talent and was merely trying his luck to see if he could induct him into the Sacred Palace and become a great help to Xianxia in the future. However, Jian Wushuang suddenly said, "Master Scorpion King, although I'm not particularly interested in joining the Sacred Palace, I'll still be heading to Crimson Stone Fort in due time to meet the new Fort Master." "Oh!" Scorpion King was surprised. "I wonder if you recognize this token I have here?" Jian Wushuang showed him a token. The token was passed to him by Crimson Stone Saint's remaining consciousness while in the Saint's tomb. Crimson Stone Saint had reminded him that he could present her with the token if he ever met Xianxia in the future, and she would then know who he was. The Scorpion King did not notice anything special at first upon seeing the token. However, his eyes enlarged after a short moment. Old Fort Master. The Old Fort Master's aura. This token is from the Old Fort Master. Scorpion King's voice trembled with excitement as he stared toward Jian Wushuang. "So you do recognize it, huh?" Jian Wushuang smiled. "Jian, how did the Old Fort Master's token fall into your hand? Don't tell me you're his personal disciple." Scorpion King asked a series of questions. "Personal disciple?" Jian Wushuang shook his head. "I'm not. I just made a deal with him to return a favor since I've benefited a lot from him. A deal which I shall do all I can to help his daughter, the new Fort Master of Crimson Stone Fort, Xianxia, once I'm sufficiently strong." "Is that so?" Scorpion King was happy and surprised. "Turns out you're the help sent by the Old Fort Master. I won't even have to try and rope you in since that's the case. However, your current abilities are a little too weak." Jian Wushuang broke out laughing. "My current abilities are indeed a bit low right now, but Lord Scorpion King, do you not recall that I only spent 20 years to make a breakthrough to peak Earth Ultimate God from Primary Level Ultimate God? I'll naturally go to the new Fort Master and give her my all to resolve Crimson Stone Fort's crisis once I'm sufficiently capable. It's probably fine if it's only 20 or 100 years, as the Fort Master could perhaps hold it together. But I'm afraid she won't be able to hold the fort if you need a few hundred years." Scorpion King frowned. "You mean to say that the situation in Crimson Stone Fort is so bad it can't even endure for a few hundred years?" Jian Wushuang was frowning as well. Crimson Stone Saint had fallen for a few 100,000 years at that moment as far as he knew. Although Crimson Stone Fort had been in an unusual crisis, it had persevered for so many years. How could it not survive for another few hundred years? Was it due to a big turn of events that had befallen Danyang Holy Domain? The situation of Crimson Stone Fort is a lot worse than what people think. The Fort Master has been trying her hardest to hold everything together. However, we're now on the brink of crumbling." Scorpion King sighed. "Jian, the old Fort Master had never been wrong about people, as it's not easy to live up to his standards. He must have believed that you can be of great help to the Fort Master since he passed you the token and made a deal with you which greatly benefited you. However, you'll need to increase your abilities as fast as possible. On that note, please let me know if you need anything that can help increase your abilities." Jian Wushuang was moved from listening to the Scorpion King's incredible hopeful words. Perhaps it was because Crimson Stone Saint had specially sent him, or he saw Jian Wushuang's incredible cultivation speed. The Scorpion King had decided as long as Jian Wushuang grew fast enough, he would be of immense help to Xianxia and might even change the entire situation. Therefore, Scorpion King was willing to do everything he could to help him upgrade his abilities. Jian Wushuang, who was scratching his nose, did not hold back and directly said, "Master Scorpion King, you know that I've been increasing my cultivation level by relying on external resources and shall keep doing so moving forward. Therefore, what I need the most right now are divine elixir pills to raise my level. I need as many as you can provide. Divine elixir pills, huh? Scorpion King pondered for a short while before immediately waving his hand and bringing out an interspatial ring. I have 50 divine elixir pills here, you can have them for now. As for the rest, I shall report to the Fort Master and have her get you more as soon as I return to Crimson Stone Fort. However, divine elixir pills are not primordial stones, so we won't have too many in stock after all. Besides, the Fort Master isn't the only person making decisions in Crimson Stone Fort, as there are various factions. Even the Fort Master may not be able to provide you many divine elixir pills after trying her very best. Jian Wushuang took Scorpion King's interspatial ring and had a quick look. He nodded and gratefully said, "Thank you, Lord Scorpion King. Don't mention it, we're under the Fort Master's faction since you're sent by the old Fort Master. We'll naturally go the greatest length to help you increase your abilities." Scorpion King smiled and sat down on his throne. "Oh yes, Jian. I saw you using a sword formation while fighting Qingze, which seems to be very potent." "Yes, the sword formation was something I obtained in the Star-Picking Pavilion's auction. A transmigration sword formation that Sword Lord Tong Xian left behind with merely the first 4 stages. I had spent 40 million primordial stones on it," said Jian Wushuang. "Transmigration sword formation. No wonder it contains such terrifying samsara strength." Scorpion King smiled as he looked at Jian Wushuang. "Jian, you're well-versed in the sword principle and studied spacetime law. I'm sorry that I can't really help you with both of these. You may not know this, but I studied transmigration law too." "Oh!" Jian Wushuang was surprised. "I have quite a bit of insight on transmigration law and even created a masterstroke that has the same effect as your sword formation, which I can show you," said Scorpion King. "Masterstroke?" Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. A grand ultimate god who was deeply skilled in transmigration law showing his masterstroke right before him. He was doing it to let Jian Wushuang observe it firsthand and study it. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Jian Wushuang. "Watch closely." Scorpion King smiled before pointing slowly towards the void ahead of him. A huge wave of samsara strength swept out of his body all of a sudden. The samsara strength began to vigorously fill the space as the huge palace hall was being crushed to bits. Jian Wushuang and the Scorpion King soon found themselves in the boundless void. 9 gigantic black holes appeared in the void at that moment. The 9 black holes were formed from samsara strength, with each of them containing immense samsara strength. The 9 black holes moved at high speed in the void like 9 gigantic dark stars under the Scorpion King's manipulation, as each of them bombarded the void. The 9 dark stars were perfectly coordinated and displayed incredibly terrifying power.